Okay, good evening. This is a meeting of the Planning Board, August 7th, 2024. It's a hybrid meeting. People can join on Zoom. They just have to look on the town website to find the information to join up. And I wanted to mention that looks like we have almost a full board. The only person who isn't here is George, and he notified me that he would be traveling. So, first on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah.
Any changes, corrections? And I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Before we get into the applications, I just want to comment on something that came up when I was talking with George, in that he felt that he had to have an FOF for this meeting after the public hearing for one of the applications, and that is not so. In the past, we have tried to have findings of facts as soon as the application was approved or denied, and basically to help out the applicants so they don't have to come back 2 or 3 weeks later to get the findings of fact to basically put into the registry of deeds to register there. But I'd like to point out that sometimes these applications get a little bit complicated even to the end. And because we've noted that the findings of fact are the information that's used by the courts in case of any kind of action, post-action, after the planning board has dealt with an application. They really need to be done very well. And so if you need more time to think about them and to write them, I urge you to take that time. You don't have to have a findings of fact right after the application has closed. So with that comment, I'm going to go right ahead into the applications that we have tonight. And the first one is an initial review, number 240701, 135 Ocean Ave, Point Arundel Condo Association. And is the agent here? No. Okay, well.
That was quick.
That was easy.
That was very easy application then. All right. Well, then I'll give him some time, but we're going to go on to the next application. All right, so I'm going to close the agenda as far as this application right now and go to the next case, which is 240702, 80 Turbot's Creek Road. Do we have that person? That agent? Thank you.
I have a raised hand from Jan Poirier. I don't know if she was the previous application or not. On Zoom.
I don't have her listed. I have Dan Poirier as an agent. Let me see if,
Jan must be related to Dan.
yeah, probably. Okay, before we go into this application.
We have Robert's iPad with a hand raised too. So I'm guessing Robert might be Robert Poirier.
We don't know a Robert either, but okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I believe there is a Robert on the
You can just
application.
tell them they can hear you on Zoom.
okay. Well,
You wanted to go.
we're assuming that the agent for this the application for 135 Ocean Ave will be here. What I'm going to do is take the applications a little bit out of order, and I'm going to take 135 Ocean Ave first, and we'll wait a little bit to see if the other.
You're going to take 80 Turbot's
I'm sorry,
Creek
we're going to
first.
take 80 Turbot's Creek first, and we'll wait a little bit and see if the other agent shows up. If not, we will move it to the next meeting.
If it's Robert Smith on the iPad, that is one of the applicants, I believe.
What?
Yeah, you have a Dan Poor and Robert Smith. They're the two on the
That
application.
may be my mistake on the agenda, but they are both listed on the application.
Okay. Well, they're not here, but the board willing to hear comments from them?
The applicant is listed as Daniel Poirier.
Yep, and Robert Smith.
No,
That's
No.
I'm sorry, he's not,
okay,
Galen.
it's on the front page of the,
There is his name on the front page, and I'm gonna ask the question of who is he, because he's not identified in the application. His name is there. I think we should have someone in the room and talk to them.
Yeah.
We're not doing presentations remotely. There's no mention of his name elsewhere, Galen. I looked.
okay, I thought, I must have been mistaken. I thought it was in their supporting documentations. It did have Robert in that, but,
It may be there, but I looked and couldn't find it.
okay.
Let me just check and see who the authorized agent is.
Daniel Poirier.
That's what I think too. Yeah, I want to see the authorization, the actual authorization.
There was one.
I don't see an actual authorization here. I thought we had one, but maybe not. Oh, there's no authorization submitted, so we don't have an app. In that case, if the agent isn't here, and we have no authorization for anybody else, I'm not inclined to take up the application or take any comments. I agree. We're going to go on to the other application. You guys can come back up.
Sorry.
Okay? Sorry about that.
There we go. Okay,
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
That's
If you
okay.
would
Yeah,
identify
sure.
yourself and your
Yeah.
address.
Good evening, everybody. Madam Chairperson, members of the board. My name is Jay Obie. I'm the lead environmental scientist at TF Moran. It's an engineering firm down in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This is Vincent Briagliano, environmental scientist with our firm. We also have Kirsten Forden with us as well, representing Riverside and Marine Construction. They'll be assisting with some of the construction efforts with this project as well. So we're here representing our client, 80 Turbot's Creek, our client Sarah Lown, and we're here to have our preliminary review, and we certainly like to thank Galen and his crew for meeting with us multiple times and having that system set up in a way that we can almost nearly on demand arrange a time to meet with these folks through that online portal was really awesome, and it really should be a model for other towns as well. And so with that, we were provided with a copy of the memorandum that you folks also received that highlighted some areas of the plan thus far that needed some further clarification. And so what we'd like to start with today is just to help everybody just better gain a sense of exactly where we are. We have a couple photo images that Vince is holding here, just to give you a sense of where we're at. It's important to note that this project started late last fall when the property owner had an interest in raising this existing dwelling so that it could be more resilient to anticipated sea level rise. Shortly thereafter, in some just prior to us getting our survey crew out there to survey the property, it was damaged during those January storm events. And so once we were able to get the survey crew out there, we created an existing conditions plan. It's a little difficult to have a precise existing conditions plan when you don't have the structure left to survey, of course. So what we did is we used, we field located, of course, all the existing components that we could field locate there, including there were some remnants of the existing piles on the existing conditions on the site. We also, our survey crew was able to pull some data from plans that were recorded, from a neighboring property that had some dimensions on it as well. So the bottom line is here, we made a good faith effort to create an existing conditions plan that represents the existing site features. One of the, initially, and I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on this piece, but we certainly recognized, and the planning department rightly picked up on, there were some subtle differences in terms of the footprint and the volume, et cetera. We were having a difficult time taking the architectural rendering and drawing and then transferring that into our CAD file and getting it to link up nicely like it should. And we've since determined or found out what that issue was, and we've made those corrections. But what this image does here is it just shows there were some subtle differences in terms of the footprint. The pink line here representing the true existing conditions. The black line was what was proposed. And in this table, those differences are what were picked up on by the planning folks. And that is highlighted in section 4C table of that memorandum. We don't want to focus too much on this. We're just showing that, hey, we recognize there was a little bit of an issue initially. The good news is that we have since made that necessary correction, and we're able to get the new proposed dwelling exactly, nearly exactly within the footprint of the existing conditions plan. When I say nearly exactly, we are decreasing the footprint subtly. We are decreasing it in a way that there's an existing ramp on the property today. We will just be proposing some stairs to access this structure at a higher elevation. And for whatever reason, our existing conditions plan, this corner of the structure wasn't at a 90-degree angle. And whether that's a function of something that was on that previous plan that I mentioned before, or perhaps it just over the years, no longer was at a 90-degree angle. Who knows? We have straightened that out, so it is at a 90-degree angle now. That there's just a subtle change there. Right here. So the take-home point here is that we've made certainly beyond a good faith effort now to rebuild this thing in the exact footprint. And we actually propose a subtle decrease in impervious area, and we gain an increase in setback from the resource. Here, there's an existing stairway area. We're able to get that structure here further away from this higher functioning resource area, the salt marsh, and through this decrease in impervious area here is where you see that decrease in impervious area footprint.
This plan's also been zoomed out some, so you can see the calculations of the existing gravel driveway and then into the pavement there too. Before we just had it zoomed in.
Nobody is going to be able to hear you on Zoom unless you go to the microphone.
Okay. One of your comments, Vince was speaking to, was the plan initially proposed didn't show the full scope, the full breadth of the lot, and it was difficult to see if there was a change in footprint to the gravel driveway, and there is not. The existing driveway stays the same. So we've updated that table. This is the table that the planning folks provided to us. We've updated it to better reflect and demonstrate that this is the previous, really means the the existing conditions plan. That's where these numbers come from. You're going from 760.25 to 760. It's really 7759.10. Subtle reduction, okay? And then
Very, very subtle.
subtle,
Yeah, okay.
right? And the decking and ramp area goes from 824 to 738. That reduction is occurring as a result of moving the deck area back and having a stairway now rather than the ramp up to the dwelling unit. Our calcs show the driveway is at 406. That doesn't change at all. It goes to 406. So in our revised plans to you folks, we'll include this new table too, so that you can better see that and cross-reference it. In terms of volume, there were some questions about the volume change. Absolutely no changes in volume. With the help of Christy too, who's been awesome and just incredibly helpful through this process. We have some better plans here to help depict and demonstrate that there will be no change in volume as well. Here's some additional renderings to show this structure now being placed at a higher elevation. We have elected to put this the top of the proposed piles will be at elevation 15. We're trying to get even a bit higher than what the regs require. Just trying to take a hard look at the future as well, and being mindful of what the future might hold in terms of anticipated sea level rise, all while taking into account sea level rise plus those events that that coincide with the king tide, the highest astronomical tide events like we experienced in January.
What was the elevation of the building, the first floor elevation existing? Do you know?
I don't recall, but we can get that for you if you'd like for the next meeting.
Kirsten said she was thinking it was 4 feet.
About 4 feet, I would say, because, yeah, 4 foot, because I had to crawl underneath it.
Yeah.
And the pilings or that were laid over didn't look all that long in the photos.
We have a color photo here. We might be able to,
I can leave these with you guys too.
if you want to pass it around, have a better sense of what was there.
Well,
But we don't know we don't know I don't think we know the precise elevation of what existed.
So if the
It sounds like 4 foot 4 inches. Yeah.
4 foot 4 inches to what? From the,
To 4 foot 4 inches to yeah, but we're talking about what was the existing?
well, okay, so
Yeah.
you got some piles that are left over, right? Still vertical piles?
There are a few there, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the top of that pile is probably the bottom of your floor joist, right?
quite
So you could
possibly.
just assume that, but whatever you're gonna replace it with is gonna be higher, so, if you just assume the top of existing pile, a remaining pile, is the bottom of the floor joist, then you can estimate everything above that.
yeah.
That'd be that'd
Sure.
be good enough for what
Yeah,
you're doing.
Ballpark.
What I'm concerned with
I'm-
is how
sure.
much you're elevating the building, because we do have, on a non-conforming structure, we do have a section in the land use ordinance, says foundation repayment, requires an overlay comparison, and it limits elevation to 3 feet. Increase in elevation to 3 feet. You might want to take a look at that section and make sure that you're meeting that requirement.
Okay. That
It's
seems to,
section- If you
just,
want to know, it's section 8(3)(b)(3) in the land use ordinance.
does that conflict with the new requirements to achieve a higher elevation?
I don't know. I
But
don't know. I
seem-
need to
would-
see, I know you're trying to meet the new flood maps, the elevation there, but I don't know what the if I don't know what the existing is and you can't tell me how much you're increasing it, I don't know whether it meets this section or not.
But you have a survey point somewhere out there that'll tell you what the elevation is
We have
of
the-
one of the pilings.
We have
Then you
the,
know how far, what the top of the pile is.
we have the
then-
existing grades, but I don't think
Okay.
we've necessarily picked up the top of the pile.
Then
And they're all crooked in a state, a state of disrepair.
If you have one that's vertical, assume the floor joist is on top of that pile, and then take 3
Yeah.
feet from that up, and that would be your max, and of course.
I hear what you're
mean,
saying.
It
We-
might fit, because there's some elevation already, and then the FEMA flood maps, are gonna have an impact, as well as the floodplain management ordinance, so.
Sure.
when you add all, it's gonna be a little tricky.
I
but
hear what you're saying. I think,
Okay.
we can do,
Yeah.
reverse engineer that, I guess, to some degree, right?
Yep.
And I hear what you're saying. But the provision in your ordinance that Madam Chairperson speaks to, it seems to conflict maybe with the,
Not necessarily,
yeah.
I mean, just take a look at it. It's worth looking at in
Okay.
detail. And then come
Uh-huh.
back, try to make it fit as well as possible, and then determine what you can do
okay,
to satisfy that land use ordinance, the floodplain management ordinance, and the current FEMA flood maps. Could be a
Okay.
little tricky, but still worth taking a hard look at it.
okay, we'll do that. Along that same vein, certainly we would submit a pre-construction elevation certificate that would be prepared by a state of Maine licensed surveyor as well.
Yeah, we
Okay.
probably need some surveying help on this anyway, just to make sure that you get accurate elevations.
But we do have accurate elevations. It was, this property, the existing conditions plan we showed you folks a moment ago was prepared by a
Okay,
state of Maine
great,
licensed land surveyor. So
Good.
it's not,
All right.
it's not a napkin sketch, it's the real deal,
okay,
all right?
good, thank you.
Uh-huh. Just to back up, to let you know that we have applied for the permit by rule through the state of Maine. That has since been issued as well. I think we've covered that there's no change in footprint, no change in calcs. The height of the structure as proposed today, the total height from the existing grade would be 27.5 feet. Okay, and that is also, is also depicted on our new plans, created with the help of Christie here as well. There be no real excavation or regrading associated with this project to address the erosion and sediment control issue. The piles are driven to refusal in this case. We had a geotechnical engineer perform some soil analyses. And we've also since this project has oversight from a structural engineer as well. We will have to modify those structural engineering plans slightly just to change a few pile locations here. And that occurs as a result of just better matching the existing footprint. So,
Are you going to need an Army Corps of Engineers permit too?
no, so our understanding is if this qualifies for permit at the local level, it also satisfies the Army Corps' requirements as well through the state of Maine's general permit in their.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can follow up with that.
okay. Yeah, I would.
So, on your piling, are you gonna remove the existing piles and use as many as possible of the existing pile locations? In other words, pull out the existing ones and then drive something else in its place?
I don't know for certain if the existing pile locations match that of what is there today. I don't think that is the case. The proposed pile locations certainly will match up with the proposed, infrastructure and joists, et cetera, of the proposed structure.
So this is new piling and on the lot, basically?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So I guess you're still gonna get rid of the old piles, no matter what, you're just not going to reuse those locations?
I think they'd be pretty darn easy to remove.
Yeah, clean it up, look nicer for sure.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we're talking about, really excavating, with mechanized equipment necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
They're pushed over, they can probably
Like
just
some of them are on their side already.
yeah,
Yeah.
they could just be plucked up,
There's a couple of, that, I'm pretty sure somebody around here can just pull those straight out, yeah.
yeah. But,
Excuse me.
bottom line is the project really doesn't, require, excavation or regrading, and these activities, of course, will occur at low tide. So, in terms of creating any turbidity, we don't anticipate that being an issue. If you wanted a little more reinforcement, we could maybe a silt sock or something, just to have a peace of mind, perhaps. That might be something
Well, it
to
would be
consider.
nice, because you're working right there in resource protection shoreland, to have a erosion sedimentation plan, to be sure.
I guess we just don't anticipate, being involved with a lot of projects on this on the seacoast and driving piles. We just don't see a lot of, erosion and sedimentation associated with these types of projects. Will they use the vibratory hammer to
Yes,
install
the
these?
vibratory hammer.
So the piles are installed with a vibratory hammer, so that it's really just jiggled in place. And there's virtually no disturbed or loose soils that would cause or create a turbid environment.
Well, I assume you're gonna have to store materials somewhere on site, and you're gonna have machinery come in there as you're constructing the building and so forth, and it would be nice to know you're not going to disturb the shoreline along there. It would be good to have a plan on how to deal with that.
Okay, we can add a silt sock, or around the perimeter of the construction area. We don't anticipate a lot of construction vehicles or any heavy machinery in there. But we can certainly add that to the plan as well.
Just a simple plan on how you'd address it. I think from what you said, it doesn't need to be anything super elaborative. Like you said, silt sock, how you're gonna put it down just to catch any sediment that may.
Sure, it makes sense. Yeah,
Good.
makes sense.
What was your zoning board of appeals about? What was the subject matter of that?
I don't know all the details of that piece. If I recall, I think just my quick review of those materials from 1983, it was a proposal to expand the structure, maybe slightly increase the volume of the structure, something to that effect. But we more or less used those documents just to look at some of the measurements that were taken at that time.
I know a lot of the buildings down there, I think, were used as more fishermen's storage and things, and there was a controversy at one time about using them for housing and seasonal houses and year-round houses.
Interesting.
Okay. Do you have a lighting plan? Is there going to be outside lighting on this?
Lighting, yes.
We haven't chosen fixtures yet, but we have a note on the plan that say that they'll meet the dark sky ordinance.
You might also consider, as you're doing this, the kind of windows you're going to have, because shorebirds will use that area.
That's a great idea. Any suggestions there, or any?
Well,
Any-
we usually ask people to have windows with screens on the outside. That helps the birds to recognize that, it's not a pass-through. So
Super.
But I
it's big
believe,
picture windows that really cause the problem.
Yeah,
People leave their lights on at night and migratory birds hit them.
yep. Yeah, you're right in the money there.
I
Well,
believe there's some reference Audubon Society puts out.
Audubon Society puts out
there's-
references on,
so, yeah.
architectural details that help protect things over
So,
picture windows.
Screen's one, but there's several different things you can do. But that would be the kind of the go-to document,
okay.
Audubon Society.
I recall seeing a fact sheet, I think, months ago.
It will lead you into other documents and so forth.
Okay. Okay, so just really in summary here, I think we've addressed a lot of the concerns that were in that memorandum. We're proposing no increase, no change in footprint, just a very subtle inches one to square off one corner. The PBR through the state of Maine has been approved, no changes in volume. There's no changes in the driveway footprint. From a practical standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to achieve a greater setback with the structure. It's better from an environmental standpoint and just an overall functions and values of wetland standpoint to rebuild within the same footprint. Moving the structure back would actually get it a bit closer to the higher functioning, higher value salt marsh area. We're going to address some of your concerns about windows. We'll get some numbers for the height of the existing structure. We'll also have a pre-construction elevation certificate. And I think, the bottom line is that the take-home point hopefully is that, the property owner here is really making a concerted effort to meet all local regs, and to create a structure to the greatest extent practicable, in kind, same footprint, but build one that's more resilient to anticipated sea level rise.
Okay.
All right?
You might take a look at the land use ordinance again to make sure that you have whatever is really needed, your zones, your flood maps, showing on there. Make sure we know clearly what the height of the building is
The existing building and the proposed.
the proposed building, the existing and proposed building, volume calculations. There are a whole list of things
Sure.
there you might go through.
That's all in the,
And make sure it's on those plans. These are new plans you're going to put forward.
yep, and then we've done that already, and it's in the new plans. Yep.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. We were gonna-
Just a point of clarification. We haven't gotten the new plans yet, have we?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Just so, all right.
So I did have another couple of questions.
Sure.
So on the one you got there showing? Sure. It says the finished floor elevation is elevation plus 15, but then about 5 minutes ago, you said the top of the piles was gonna be at elevation plus 15. So you might wanna reconcile those two numbers. You don't have to do it right now. I'm just saying, please make sure your floor elevation
Finished floor,
is
sure. That
aligns with your top of the
was
piles.
my mistake on the fly there.
That's okay.
Yep.
And I know you're gonna catch it. And then, something that would really help, a few more dimensions on some, I know this is conceptual at the moment, but it'd really be great if you could have an elevation drawing showing the elevation of the soil, the elevation of the top of your reference pile, which is remaining from the old structure.
Yep.
The elevation of your bottom of your current proposal,
Yeah,
the base flood elevation, and then the floodplain management ordinance, I think, still requires the bottom of your structure to be 2 feet above the top of the base flood elevation. This is for run up, there's some other things that affect the water height. So you may want to just really take a hard look at all this. This is a little complicated. There's multiple ordinances that affect this. So we'll be very interested to see your elevation view of what's going on, okay? And then, of course, the top of your structure,
sure.
there's a bunch of constraints.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that we can easily prepare,
be
given that
great.
we have, all the baseline data and,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And we should have this in our hands, not just in the town office, but in our hands 7 days before the next meeting,
Okay,
okay? Which doesn't give you a lot of time. I think it's only a week or so,
piece of cake.
Okay.
okay?
I thought I remember reading somewhere about requirement for securing the sewage lines.
Yep,
and
that's a great point.
Securing the propane tank.
No,
So
no propane.
Okay, so there's no propane, it's
No
all electric.
propane, yeah.
I thought I remember reading something about the fire.
Good memory, and I mentioned, and I meant to mention that as well. We're currently working with the structural engineer, and he's going to revise the plan to show some of that detail.
Okay.
And we'll have that for your,
And you might get an okay from the town engineer when he has that detail.
And, but if there's no propane, that was the fire,
That was the fire chief.
that was the fire chief, yeah.
Yeah, so he doesn't need to
Yeah,
sign
if
off.
you're no propane, you don't need that, yeah.
okay,
Good, didn't like floating propane tanks for
No,
some reason.
no, not at all. It's
Yeah.
not,
I understand.
The
not a good
town
thing.
engineer just really wanted to make sure that for wastewater, if it ever were to flood again and be ripped off, that at least it's secured to one of the pilings. That's really his concern.
Yeah, if you rip the piling off, then you've got bigger issues,
Right.
I would assume.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So with a lot more required for us to really evaluate it, I think we should continue the initial review. I can't find this complete yet.
Could I have a chance to ask a question or two? May I have a chance to ask a question or two?
Sorry.
Just, as you're going to make some changes, let me just, maybe some of them are nits. On the application form that you fill out, you recognize that, the zone here is listed as VRE. We don't have a VRE zone, I
No.
don't think.
Village Residential East?
Oh, this is VRE zone, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But then you check, my apologies, I'm getting confused by my own notes.
That's okay.
So it's Village Residential East. You've checked shoreland, but I think that resource protection also needs to be checked. I believe this is entirely in the resource protection and shoreland zone,
Okay.
okay? The lot size is given as .11 acre. And on the town's vision property card, it says it's .29 acres, and I wondered about that discrepancy.
Interesting. We can take a look at that. Just from my experience in working with the plan,
Well, if you've just surveyed
can't
it
yeah.
and measured it, then that's gonna override here, but I
yeah,
just wanted to point out,
it's so darn small, I can't imagine it being,
it's not over a quarter of an acre.
I can't
so,
imagine it being over a quarter of an acre, yeah.
All right. Do we have an agent authorization form in the package?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. It's kind of,
I didn't,
it's right here, it's on To Whom It May Concern, 9th of July.
Yep.
Is that,
Yep. Oh, okay, this is one I had a question on.
oh, I see, it covers,
It covers the state of Maine DEP, but it really should have an "and" after that if you wanted to cover the town of Kennebunkport. The sentence,
Line down that says it in the center, the town of Kennebunkport.
yeah.
I
yeah.
see the
and that's
term, town of
problem, The
Kennebunkport.
sentence is not clear.
Oh, you're saying it should say, and the town of Kennebunkport.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
It's
so
got
that's,
the word "and."
that's
does-
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you would cover,
That truly is a nit, I apologize.
That's okay, no reason to apologize.
I just misread it. When I went through this package, I had a hard time, it seemed like we were using the word structure sometimes ambiguously. Sometimes we were referring to the deck, sometimes we were referring to the house, sometimes we were referring to both the deck and the house. we always kept the driveway structure separate, but, so I just want to ask you, when you go back and you look at the plans, we want to be able to not increase the living space,
Yeah.
right? We want to be
Understood.
able to say, we haven't made a change in that.
Sure.
And that's going to be within the confines of the house
Yeah.
in particular. It looked like that chart that you had, that you showed earlier addressed that. So I think you probably have that covered, but that's,
The chart addresses it, but I'm certainly a fan of consistency, and we'll take a look at the language we use to ensure that it's
okay.
consistently applied throughout, for the next meeting.
all right. Can we clarify the nonconformances of this lot and structure? Maybe we can do that here, but it looks like the lot is undersized. It's in the resource protection zone. It doesn't meet the minimum width. It doesn't meet the minimum frontage. Does it meet any of the setbacks? Certainly not the front setback.
Doesn't meet the setback to the resource, obviously. Does not meet side
Within the
set-
lot even, on either side?
That's right.
Okay. All right, so just, when we put the findings together, I just want to be able to be clear on those figures, and it was hard pulling that out of the plans. Maybe it goes with what Larry was saying, sometimes the dimensions were hard to get at,
Okay.
so.
Would you like to see more dimensions added?
I'd like to be able to see where the existing and proposed house and deck are relative to the lot boundaries.
Sure.
And relative to what should be the setbacks.
We'll tease out in, the setbacks and distances that
And
you
that's what
need
we're
to see.
asked.
Yeah,
Primarily to be clear on and to be ruling on, and we're putting something in a place where you'd never get to put it today, so we don't want to
yeah.
extend
No,
where it is right now.
I completely,
All right.
completely get that, and the need to have sound findings of fact,
Yep.
in your decision-making. Completely get that.
I just had a confusion point on, I'll show you this drawing, I think it's one of them that you showed.
Existing conditions.
You had one that was blown up. Yes, existing conditions plan. There's like a hexagon in the middle of it, and it has an arrow pointing to it, and it says highest astronomical tide elevation 6.3. Can you tell me what
Sure.
is what's being rendered there?
Yeah, yeah. Do you have the copy of the plan in front of you now?
Yep.
What you, and I understand how that would be confusing at first glance. What that's demonstrating is it's really a contour line, and it,
Okay.
and so essentially there's a little bit of and there's an elevation change in such a way that creates a bit of a knoll or
All
a
right.
rise, and that just happens to be where the highest astronomical tide elevation is, based on data supplied by the state of Maine. So in theory, if you were there at the highest astronomical
no, I
tide, you'd
understand.
have a little island there.
That would be the high ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
One more point on this particular chart. You have a note here that says how, I calculate the normal high water mark by, basically it looks like by looking at the rack line, if I'm reading it correctly. Is that right?
Well, it's a number of things, not, it's determined based on the,
The boundary was determined by observing a strand line of flotsam, debris, and physical barriers that blocks inland flow of the tide.
and that's within the definition how to make the determination of that.
But I read that, well, first of all, this is tidal, right? This is tidal, so, and normal high water line for tidal waters is at the upland edge of the coastal wetland. For non-tidal waters, it essentially is to be determined the way your note says. The line, it's apparent from visible markings, change in the character or soils due to prolonged action of the water, et cetera, et cetera. But if you've got tidal waters, which this seems clearly to be, the normal high water mark is defined by the upland edge of the wetland.
And then I
So it's-
might be reading the same document. Do you want me to speak into this?
Yes, please, yeah.
Sorry, my name is Vincent from TFI.
But by the way, I'm not speaking with authority here, I'm really speaking with questioning.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I remember, I think, reading that same document.
Yeah.
And I remember finding, and I had a hard time back when I was doing this, distinguishing between the two. I was kind of confused as well.
Yeah.
But I think I saw a definition that then explained what the water's edge is, and it kind of brought you full circle on how to come define that, the normal high water line. I can go back and look at that document.
It says the upland edge of the coastal wetland as defined, and then it says the coastal wetland is defined as, yeah, all tidal and subtidal lands, and I took it to mean it would be the edge of the salt marsh,
Right.
rather than
That's how I
the line
initially
of the
understood
most
it
recent
too.
tide.
Yeah, and then just by going through all the other definitions that provide in that document, it brought me back full circle to, yes, that's true, but also physical barriers when like coming across this here, riprap. And just taking into account all those definitions and,
So, having said that, I'm not quite sure what the importance of one versus the other is, all right? Is in terms of what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do here. But I just, I guess I just wanted to raise it up and see what you said. And I think that still it says you're building up over the high water mark, clearly in terms of the anticipated high water mark. And
sure, yeah.
I'm interested in doing some homework on what Nina brought up earlier about you can raise the, but not by more than 3 feet, and that seems like,
Yeah, that wouldn't provide
that
enough.
seems challenging here,
Yeah.
so,
You get it out of the water, but don't raise it that
but
much.
not too much. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, to me, you clearly need to stay below 35 feet max
Yeah.
height, right?
Yeah.
Sight lines, everybody's gonna get upset about
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but.
But saying you can't raise it out of the high tide water because you'd be raising it too much.
Well, that's what I'm worried about here, is if, in particular, if one definition of where the high water mark is even worse than where that rack line was on that particular day, I want to make sure you're up and out of that for the
Well-
foreseeable future.
We'll take a closer look at that
right.
definition.
It is a
We
bit-
work with a lot of other similar definitions in other states too as well.
Yeah.
And when we see the word normal high water mark, sometimes we see the term, normal, ordinary high water mark. You're talking about an average of all the water levels, not the highest astronomical
It's
tide.
usually the mean high water mark.
Similar to a mean, and so that more accurately represents the average of all the high tides in that location.
Okay.
But we can take another look at that, and if anybody else wants to weigh in on that, that would be great. And actually, if you really wanted to weigh on it, maybe find a way to consistently define that for all municipalities in Maine.
Yeah, and you probably don't want to put that
All right.
in series with us approving your application. Say a little bit about construction access, just sort of as in layman's terms. I see you've got I know this to be a very tight area. You've got neighbors on either side, mainly seasonal. Other structures that look like they were lucky to have survived, some of which, so how are you gonna how's Deering Lumber gonna get in there, or whoever you're using, and where are they gonna drop things, and
So
paint me a
the-
picture, if you would.
The construction, we're gonna come in from the back of the property, the roadside.
Yeah.
We will start, I don't know if you want the construction sequence or,
I just want to get a feel for how this is going to be done, and how the neighbors are going to be impacted and how it's going to not damage the environment.
Sequence.
Yeah.
So essentially what, we're gonna do is we'll bring the equipment in. It'll be, the machine is called an excavator, but it has our vibe on it, so we're not excavating.
It's a pile
Just-
driver.
So you're talking about putting in the piles?
Right.
All right, so I got that part from what you said earlier.
Right, so
And now the piles are in. Now what?
so after the piles are all driven,
Yep.
we'll install cross bracing and caps. The caps, I didn't know if there was a question.
Again, it's coming in with a truck?
So what we'll bring the material in, it'll be stored on site. After the piles are driven, we will have probably a JCB. Most of it's gonna be, yeah, it'll be a JCB probably to get the guys up so that they can attach the cross bracings. And then we'll attach the caps using cap pins. The pin will go right through the cap into the pile. And then from there, we'll install the joist. But by that time, we're gonna be able to build something for our crews to, like ladders, quite honestly, to install the joist. And the joist will then be,
And where were the joists all this time?
where are the joists?
Yeah.
The joists are on top of the caps.
Where would they be stored?
Oh, they'll be stored, in.
They're not-
behind-
they're not
so
there
it
today,
probably-
right?
You know what we'll say? We'll say it'll be like in the parking area, I guess is the best way for me to put it, is we'll probably store all of our materials. So,
So is that
yeah,
covered
so
at
right
high
in here.
tide?
I'm sorry?
Is that covered at high tide?
No.
No.
Nope, they'll all be, we'll store them back here and pull what we need as we need it.
It looks like a tiny driveway
It is.
from my view, and you're talking about bringing in the materials to do a foundation and then a house and then
So we're not gonna bring everything in at once.
okay.
That's not how we're gonna do it. We'll get the piles, once the piles are in, then we'll bring in the caps.
Yeah.
If we can bring the caps and the joists in and store them in this area, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
If not, we'll just get the caps and we'll bring in.
Some of that'll be decisions due to weather, due to availability, all of that, but basically, you're telling me it's gonna have to be managed in terms of how much room you have, and you can't take everything at once.
Oh, right.
You've
No, we
already
wouldn't be able to
anticipated
bring
that.
all of the materials up and store them.
See, maybe this is so obvious that you're wondering like, well, didn't he see that?
No,
But
no.
I'm really looking for an explanation
No,
that's
I
simple.
understand.
that-
I understand, yeah.
You know, and if there's an abutter out there who's listening, I want them to know that too, that this has been thought through and it's not gonna ruin their summer or whatever, you know.
No, we plan on, we don't want to build it during the summer. We
yeah.
definitely want to do it, in the fall.
In the fall or,
Preferably in
spring.
the fall.
yeah, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
sure.
So, thanks for that, Ed. So Ed's comments made me think of a couple more things.
Uh-oh.
So it looks like your current piles are concrete, is that right? Are you gonna replace them with concrete, or are they gonna be timber?
There'll be timber, there'll be
12 by
wooden,
12 timbers, I guess?
wooden piles.
Yeah, okay, with the CCA preservative, I guess, anyway, whatever it is. Okay, it's just properly preserved,
2.5 CCA.
gotcha. Okay, so then, I noticed, this right-of-way, what is the right-of-way for?
There's a sewer easement on the
Okay.
plan.
All right,
Um,
that's okay, I mean, maybe just put a little note on there, whatever the right-of-way for, and then,
Sure.
the other thing that came to mind while Ed was talking is, I noticed you have a stone wall there. Are you gonna need to upgrade that at all? Because, the reason I ask that is because there've been a lot of failures of stonework, around here on seawalls and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So if you need to upgrade that, you might wanna,
That's a great point.
add that into the application.
During the storm event, the property didn't really experience much erosion at all, and it does have a pretty well-stabilized shoreline with all the existing riprap
Okay, all right.
which is here, yeah,
Don't
and
need
that
to
did act to dissipate some of that wave energy during those storm events.
Okay,
I
good.
don't think Turbots Creek gets that much wave action, does it? Way in there?
Well, I guess maybe
Well-
the question is, if
I
you guys must have some thoughts as to what is it that destroyed
Yeah,
the
our
existing
thoughts
structure.
are, is that there was in fact some wave action, and that the storm, the fetch of the wind was such, and is the perfect storm for that area.
Is this January?
In January, yeah, and it just wasn't able to withstand that repeated wave action. And
It was a pretty good wind during that event as
a
well.
lot of wind in the right direction, coupled with the highest astronomical tide and a bunch of storm surge, as you know.
Did it?
But, to your point, you made a great point that I hadn't thought of yet, and that in terms of storing, in the construction process and construction sequencing, probably would be a good idea to take a look at the tides, be cognizant of what those high tides are during that construction phase. And certainly I don't think it'd be great to have construction materials soaking in tidal water, so that, maybe there's a way to
Well, I always
create some
thought
staging
you'd make a platform to put those materials on, so the
Yeah.
high tide, if you had to leave them there, the high tide wouldn't get to them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Track those for your files.
And before we leave the seawall, since you're doing all this work, I know the winter storms were severe, but they weren't, they might not be the design case. So you may want to just take a look at what riprap size, what D50 riprap size you need for the 100-year storm condition, because that has not occurred here yet, and it's coming someday. So while you're
Yeah, you're
doing all
right.
this work, you may discover you need to add, maybe just another layer or something, but since you're doing this, you may want to take a look at what riprap you need for the 100-year storm conditions, that's all.
That's a great point.
Am I correct in remembering that this almost looks like a cottage community? This isn't one house that's protected by a riprap wall. This is
Oh, I see.
it's a more complicated situation than that.
Bigger than
isn't
one
it?
house? Oh, I see.
Well,
Riprap.
no, I'm just saying there's a lot of little, I think
There-
they
there
might
are-
have even been broken up at
Oh, I
one
got
point
you.
There
from
are
a larger structure.
Numerous small little dwellings like this
Oh, I got
down
you.
in this area, yeah.
So the riprap might be beyond the scope of this one house, that's the issue.
Well, you might be putting in a
Yeah,
point solution for something that really
Yeah.
is a,
It certainly,
gotcha. Yeah,
yeah, your wall, the new buzzword or term these days is your wall and protection area is only as great as your neighbors, your abutters' protection systems, and so you don't want to be doing
There's a
something in a
coupling.
manner that adversely affects an abutter, so.
okay, right, I got you, yeah, so maybe that's sort of out of the
I didn't mean to say you weren't on to an interesting subject. I just didn't want you to think it was one that was,
right,
oh yeah, I should have thought of that. I'm gonna fix it.
yeah,
No, it's,
Might be for someday.
okay, yeah, good idea.
Before we left mine, and I was done, except I realized when we talked about nonconformities, the one thing that I think you're hitting on that new chart that you put in, but we'd like to be able to simply say, and before there was this many square feet, i.e. this percentage of impervious area due to the,
Yep.
several components, and now there's gonna be less than that.
Yep.
Or,
we can break it down
Should
in a
be-
table.
but it should pop if we can. Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
If you do have to add the wall
Percentages on there
into
would help.
this application, I think you definitely do need to talk to the Army Corps of Engineers, get a permit.
We're looking at Galen.
Well, my view is the walls might be outside the scope. I mean, if this is a
Maybe.
wall for a community, then all of a sudden, all of the affected properties have to come together to want to investigate it, right? I mean, it's actually a bigger subject than just for this one application.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's out of,
We're involved with a few other projects in the area where, multiple property owners are coming together to address the storm events that happen, trying to make all their properties more resilient. The intent of this permit application through the state was to allow it to meet the standards for being accepted under a permit by rule, a streamlined permitting process, so it could get going on this as soon as possible. So,
Yeah.
Maybe down the road, other property owners take a hard look at this and collectively submit an application to address all those issues.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So before I interrupted you, you were going to talk about a continuance of the initial meeting.
Yeah, I think there is enough here, substantive, that we can't really find the application complete at this point.
Understood.
And so we continue the initial review, waiting to get those materials that you've updated, as well as answers to our questions. And so the initial review would be continued for 2 weeks until, do we have a date? For the next planning board meeting.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
Do we, I know there was a note from the town about boxes there versus mail. Have we sorted that out yet? No?
That was for discussion tonight. I don't know what you
Yes.
guys want to discuss that.
Yeah, I will mention that one applicant did try to send us materials via certified mail. Don't do that.
Okay.
Most of us didn't get it.
Okay,
It took over a week to go from Kennebunkport to Kennebunkport, which is,
Right. Yeah.
which one
And-
would have assumed it was a bit quicker than that.
Yeah, usually just regular mail will get it to us within a few days.
okay.
Or if you, I think we could say, for these upcoming applications, if you leave the copies at the
I think we'll,
planning board office, we could pick them up.
yeah,
Was that good?
I think we'll just.
That's where I was trying to get to save the kind of hassle of that one of
Right.
postponing another 2 weeks
You're
because
okay
the
with
mail doesn't work.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're at a really good place today, because the bulk of all the items that you've requested have been completed.
Yeah.
I think we're in a good place, and we're going to polish this up and then just hand deliver it ASAP.
Sounds good.
that'd be
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
That would be
That's fine.
excellent, yeah.
Right, good.
Okay, that was really helpful, and we appreciate the time, okay?
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
All right.
guys.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
at this point, I will ask if anyone representing 135 Ocean Ave, application 240701, is available.
Hey,
Okay.
All right.
So, if,
We apologize.
no, please, wait, you have to come up to the microphone, and you don't have to apologize, you just have to come up to the microphone and identify yourself and your,
I'm Dan Poirier from Point Arundel Condo Association. This is Bob Smith. We're both owners there. We apologize. We were both on the Zoom call. We thought it was a Zoom meeting. We were both yelling at the laptop saying, why can't they hear us? So we scooted down here. So
okay,
Yeah.
now we are here.
good. So if you could tell us about this application?
Yes. Same as a lot of the owners during this past storms, we had some storm surge. And while it was not anywhere near as bad as what they experienced over at Kennebunk Beach, we thought we would take a proactive approach to our seawall. And so we have filed for a permit with the DEP. That permit is in process right now. But our plan is to add 70 feet of rectangular stone to the top of the seawall, 35 feet with a double layer of stone, which would add to the height of the wall approximately 2.5 to 3 feet, and then the other 35 feet would just be a single layer of stone. They're very similar stones that are used in Bideford Pool and Fortune Rocks, and that work would be done by George Burr, who is shoreline certified, and he has done a lot of work for the town also.
Do you have a drawing you could show us?
There are drawings in the packet. There's also pictures in the packet.
Before we start on that, could I go over a couple of housekeeping things on your application?
Sure.
One, you list this as the Point Arundel Condo Association. It's not, it's the Point Arundel Owners Association. And because it is an association that's certified by the state, okay, you do need a certificate of good standing and a correction to the application that way. Okay. Two, no authorization was submitted. So if you are basically speaking for the Point Arundel Owners Association, then you need to have an authorization through them. And I believe you mentioned on your memo that this really should include the minutes of the meeting that made you the agent, that identifies you as the agent.
Okay, may I ask a question? If I am the president of the Point Arundel Association, does that not give me the authority to speak for the association?
That would be dependent on the association documents.
We just need proof that you were elected president, like minutes from the association that said you were elected president.
Well, and then maybe an excerpt from your bylaws that would confirm that you're authorized to speak on behalf as an agent for the
president,
association.
yeah.
Yeah, we can get you that.
Three, there's no copy of a recorded deed. I don't see a book and page. You show a deed, basically, the ownership, but I need the recorded deed from the registry, the York County Registry of Deeds.
Okay, in the packet, I do have a Schedule A Point Arundel Condo Association that tells the property, and then I also believe I included the bylaws that state the book and page number that is recorded in at the York County Registry.
That may be, but we probably need an actual document from the registry.
It says
that
here,
is
the amended and restated Declaration of the Condo Association has a book and page number.
There's several, actually,
If I could speak just for a second.
yeah.
If you'd identify yourself and speak in the microphone.
I'm Bob Smith. I'm an owner. I actually have the building that's right at the intersection of the Kennebunk River and the break wall and the beach. This piece of property that is on there, it actually was certified by the town. I don't know if that letter's in, you put this in
Yep.
here or not. But what happened was that the town in the GIS database that you have had it as their piece of property. But come to find out, we always thought it was our property. But the town has come back and designated, yes, it is your property, not our property. And they did the deed research to figure that out.
Right, Becky,
Yes.
the
Yes,
assessor,
we saw
put
that.
that in there. It says this application is for
Yes.
both lots combined. We understand that.
And-
But Nina's asking a related question. Who owns the property?
The association does.
Right, now who speaks for the, first of all, where does it,
He's the president of the corporation and the board.
so we have a declaration here, essentially the deed
Yes.
for the condo, and it doesn't say what book and page of the registry it's from. In the preamble here, it talks about the long and fascinating history of its amendings and where those different amendments have been filed, but it doesn't tell you which amendment this
It's
particular
in book
drawing is for.
Well, it's in book 2002, page 272.
Oh, it's not in book 9674, page 237?
It's a very.
I mean, we can pick one, but it just seems to me we shouldn't be guessing.
Well,
Right.
that's okay. I think that can be cleared up very
You
easily.
Yeah.
can just go to the registry, you can download a copy of it with
Of
the
the
book and
current
page
one.
number. The current one,
Yeah,
the latest.
Okay.
And as for the town and so forth, I understand that. They thought they owned our private cemetery too, until I went to them and said, no, you don't.
no, it was good to get that squared away. I agree. So I'm jumping in here only because
Yes.
I had the same issue. It's like, this is interesting, and it suggests there really is a deed, and there's been a history of
Yes.
amendments, but
I'm sure
which
there's a
one are we
deed.
talking about today?
I'm sure there's a deed. Yeah, okay. So with those interruptions, you can go on.
Well, it's pretty basic, pretty simple. We just want to add rectangular stones to the top of the seawall as
Yep.
we applied in our permit to the DEP. We're not moving any soil, we're not moving anything with the shoreline. We're just putting stones on top of an existing seawall to add to the height.
Yep,
And
yep.
you can look at it two ways. You can say we're either adding height to the seawall or adding height to the lawn, because the lawn comes up to the seawall. So it's not a freestanding wall per se, it's a wall that comes up to the property.
Yes, it's really a very simple thing you want to do, but unfortunately, because you're.
It's simple.
In a tidal zone, okay, there are some ordinances and statutes that require you to do a little more. The sketches that you have are really not very descriptive in terms of saying, pointing out where exactly this is, how many feet, where you're going to add stones, and the exact elevations. If you look at the land use ordinance, you'll see there are a lot of requirements, even for adding stones to a wall, even if you're not touching the lawn. There are requirements to understand what kind of soils you have, vegetation, tree labels. Are you adding 30, I couldn't tell whether you were adding 35 feet twice, or you were taking a 70-foot strip and adding 2 layers there. It wasn't very clear, and we really need to have this well-defined before we can take a look at it. There's no scale. The driveways and easements. If you look at the memo that the planning office sent out, you'll see there are a lot of questions there. And you need a much more detailed map, basically showing what you propose. And I suggest you work with the planning office for that.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused, because the drawings are to 1/8 scale, and it says scope of work, 2 layers of stone, first 35 feet, 1 layer of stone, last 35 feet.
Less 35.
And it shows you the length of 70 feet. Gives you the height of the existing seawall of 7 feet,
Where are we looking? Can we work on the same piece of paper?
that one here, the one in the
Okay.
drawings. And
Yeah.
it says, new height, 1 layer will be 8 to 8.5 feet. New height of 2 layers will be 9 to 10 foot. It is to scale, and I think, maybe I'm just defending my work vigorously, but I think it's pretty explanatory that what we're trying to do there.
Well, to me, these are good sketches, to start with, but if you look in the land use ordinance, there's actually a lot of guidance on what kind of information needs to be, presented in a proper engineering format. And, these are good to hand off to some engineering firm to, well, I know you must have some existing documents that they could start from, but when you consider the requirements in the land use ordinance, this is just a starting point. It's not really descriptive enough for what I think we need for the actual finding of facts.
In a way, Larry, I almost thought there was too much information on these sketches, and it's setting you up for these questions. Can we just look at a few of them?
Yeah.
The first one that I see here, let's make sure we're on the same one, says existing frontal, building 3, unit 7. Am I on the right page?
I got you.
What's that, Stan and Bob?
Building 3, which one?
It says existing frontal, building 3, unit 7. The pages aren't numbered, but
Exactly.
that's what's here. And sometimes these things get on my den floor and get messed up, so I might have them out of order, but I don't think so. This one here. Is that the first one? I just thought if we looked at a few of them,
Yeah.
instead of we're saying, no, these need to be different, maybe we could say, what's confusing us here? we're on the same page now?
Yeah, proposed.
So here we are, existing frontal, building 3, unit 7. Honestly, that doesn't mean anything to me. And that's part of the problem. So I'm trying to put this onto a plan. You've got a plan that's a few pages earlier, but I don't see anything in there about unit 7 either. So here, this guy here.
Yeah.
You see that? You see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that is a land survey map.
Where's unit 7 on that? I can't tie those two drawings together in my head.
Okay.
I'm just trying to give you a notion of what, and that's probably in there because there was something that said you ought to include a,
Well, this application also included everything that we sent into DEP because
oh, okay.
the DEP required all of these drawings. They wanted the
Does say so?
existing, the proposed, existing
Oh, yeah,
overhead,
yeah.
proposed
Yeah, I know it's the
overhead.
same complex, but, yeah.
So we included everything that we sent into DEP.
okay.
And we did have a pre-submission meeting with DEP. When we sent our application in, we got a notice of deficiency. We had a pre-submission video conference with them, and we corrected everything, and we resent it in, and they accepted our correction. So we thought we would include everything that we sent to them in this package.
So now we're starting from scratch, and I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, okay, I know where this is. I've walked down that way. Oh, yeah, okay, this looks like, there's the river, right? And they must be talking about this end of it. And I look, all right, what are they gonna do? Where's the stone going? Okay? Existing frontal, building 3, unit 7. Okay, I guess that must be toward the end here. Maybe this one's building 7. Where's the stone that you're adding on here? And the fact that there's a double layer and a single layer? Or is that on another chart?
It would be on the proposed plan.
Ah, this is existing, right. Okay, so here, now that I see it, right, on the right-hand side, I've got a seawall, height 7 foot to the top of the new double layer. And the single layer, maybe that's a different height. I don't see that. Scope of work, 2 layers of stones, first 35 foot, first layer, last 30, nope. It's like it's almost there. But it's there, it reminds the person who knows what they're gonna do, what they thought they were gonna do, but when you're talking to a bunch of newbies here, I can't get oriented on it.
I think,
So did DEP actually approve?
It's in process.
Oh, it's in process.
okay.
Takes
But-
120 days.
Besides the DEP, we have our own ordinances in which we want to know things like, how are you going to do this? You know,
yeah.
where the stone's going to be kept? Is there going to be erosion control? Because you're right on the river. We don't want soil washing into the river. So you need basically an erosion sedimentation control plan, even if it's simple, even if you're just saying we're going to put the stones here and we're going to take them one by one and put them on the wall, okay?
How are
There-
the stones gonna get there?
Yeah, the physical changes to the landscape, are there any? You need to address that. There are things like, we normally have a map with contours, scale, zones, driveways, easements, setbacks. If you're not going to give us that, you need to ask for waivers of that material and say why they're not necessary. Driveways you would need to put on your plan because you need to show where the materials are coming in during construction. You need basically a construction plan. One of the things that the planning board memo mentioned was that you also have to fulfill requirements in zones A1 through 30, which I believe you're in, if I remember correctly. And in the floodplain management ordinance, and that's chapter 219, not just the land use ordinance. And here in 219, 6K1, in zones A1 through 30, encroachments, including fill, new construction, substantial improvement, and other development, shall not be permitted in riverine areas for which a regulatory floodway is designated on the community's flood boundary and floodway map unless a technical evaluation certified by a licensed professional engineer is provided, demonstrating that encroachments will not result in any increase in flood levels within the community during the occurrence of base flood discharge. In other words, when you put up a containment wall, we want to know what's going to happen. Have you planned for I assume the water came over your wall and drained off, but in other applications that we've had engineers come in and look and say, okay, the water's going to come over here. Even if it comes over these stones, how does the water drain out? Where are things going to happen? Is there going to be soil erosion? These are the things that we have to look at, in addition to the DEP and anything that they say.
I think we're missing a little bit of why we're doing this. Why a partial wall? That's kind of interesting. You have active water and you have passive water. Passive water would be water that floods up. It just comes up and it goes down. The duration of that, in the worst case, even with a hurricane, it's about 3.5 hours because of the very high tide we have. We are right on the ocean and the river. Now, the problem we have here is the federal break wall. That you have a break wall that goes north and south, for all intents and purposes, 2 of them. You've channeled the river over to that. When you channeled it over, you put in a break wall east to west. Okay, so you have the east-west break wall. It goes to a full run. The other side just has a full run coming out. Part of the problem here is the river has to actually turn to go over. We had, of course, the perfect storm, the astronomical high tide that occurred, 11.6 feet. You had a surge approximately 2.5 feet. You had a rainstorm that took place back in the Back Bay. You took the pilings out of the bridge. It's increased the current in the river, which has had devastating effects for us because we're getting the brunt of that. As the water approaches, it can't turn. So as a result, it tries to turn, but in the case of this, you had a wind that was about 40 miles an hour for 2 days ahead of it. That's pushing in. You have the surge, you have piling of water. It can't go out the break wall, so it has to turn. When it goes to turn, it actually pulsates coming back and forth. This is trying to control the active water that's coming at and actually coming into the break wall. We have, the break wall is actually about 350 feet or so long, but it's this part that's right next to the federal break wall where they put stones in to try to break that up as it occurs. It's not working. It's allowing that water to come very fast. We have this documented, not from the storm, but the day before, I was able to capture it. I was at my Virginia home, and I was able to capture it on our security cameras with the pulsating and then the water that comes up over the break wall, over our current break wall. So we're trying to break that water up. We're not trying to prevent the passive water at all, because you'd have to build a fortification. Once you build a fortification, can you get the water out once you build the wall to put it in? Big, big problem. This would have virtually no resistance to the water flowing out, but it's to stop the water from. We want to break it up before it breaks our break wall, because it'll cut through to the road, and it'll go right across to the ocean that has the waves coming in. We already have on the first section of our break wall, the ocean's rolling right over the federal break wall and part of our break wall that adjoins the federal break wall. So that's kind of the reason that we need to do this. Each winter, we've had a little bit of encroachment. If you go back to 1978, there was actually a worse event that happened than happened in January. where we had probably an extra 6 to 8 inches of water. We have some pictures of in the units where the water got into it that way. So it's, you know, there's a whole other problem with the road, the parking lot. We're all part of that equation that's taking place in that. And somehow we've got to come to some kind of a better permanent solution, but it's going to be extremely costly when that occurs.
Well, you've just explained to me why we should have an evaluation by a licensed marine professional engineer for the stones that you want to put up there.
Yeah.
Well,
Will, by running the engineering calculations, will that do what you're hoping it will do and not have an adverse impact somewhere else down the line or another part?
what we're
We can
doing
sit here,
shouldn't
but
have-
what we need is somebody to be able to certify that, put their stamp on it and say, yes.
I think you're going to find we need a better solution for the whole thing, including the federal break wall. I mean, we've got a problem there. The parking lot is eating away quickly, and another winter of a couple storms like that, and we're going to be in bigger trouble.
You're saying this is not unrelated to the fact that Colony Beach is closed to traffic?
We are, well,
I'm
that's
just
great.
saying, right, another
that's-
evidence of this
Yeah.
as a larger issue.
That road is 20 feet from my house, and the water surged over onto the road.
I understand.
Toward my house.
For some reason, it's not discriminating between that beach and your house, huh? The water seems to have a mind of
No,
its
the
own.
water
Yeah.
wants to come all the way. The good news is there's enough beach there still that my house is protected.
So far, yeah.
But we're getting it from the river coming in the back door. My real fear is if we don't do something fairly quickly, you're gonna have the river gonna cut its way over the other way, and it's gonna take out our piece of the break wall, and it's gonna go right to the ocean, and then the ocean's gonna come right in, and there goes a big block of land.
Galen, do we have any connections through the town to the Army folks that did the design and implementation of the breakwater?
I'm
You know,
sure we
like,
can reach out to them.
it just seems to me that their input on this would be invaluable.
I came to the town office and asked if they had any contact with the engineer, and the answer was no, which kind of
it's tough.
surprised me.
Well, it's-
I was trained at Fort Belvoir at the Corps of Engineers School for mapping, charting, and survey, okay?
Yeah.
I later, as I became an SES, I was deputy to an Army general who had just come off the Mississippi River water management, and they ended up giving me the college because they needed some work done. So I had the college about 5 years, along with many other things that I was doing. But I would very much like to call a court and at least have a discussion with them
You'd
about what's going on.
You'd like to start with a name. An awful lot of these
Yes.
things, it seems like a big bureaucracy, but if we could get to the
Yes.
first name of somebody who was knowledgeable, who gave this some thought,
Absolutely.
that might be a string that could be
The
pulled on.
Corps should be involved. I mean, this was the Mosa River, wide,
Yeah.
sprawling. You had a channel down it so they could float the boats they were building in the old days. 1935 came along. You put a break wall in, no big deal, but now it manifests itself that it just cannot let that amount of water
Well, it's all connected.
turn and do its thing.
Should we talk about just a few of the other things that are needed on this? Just, some of them seem like nits maybe, but, just in terms of the application page, the application checks that this is shoreland zone. Actually, it's not, it's riverfront zone.
Zone is RF.
That's riverfront.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's riverfront.
Oh, I see, and then we've checked that it's shoreland, which it's not, because it's riverfront.
Yeah.
Shoreland doesn't overlay riverfront or dock square. The fact that you're in riverfront already covers you. It means you're subject to all of the same requirements, but it happens to there's some cases where it's not one but the other, but it's just, you don't need that second check mark. We clarified that this is lots 3 and 4 now combined, and total of 1.4 or 1.5, total of 1.5 acres. Right. Robert, is it Robert or Bob? Bob, your name is listed on the cover page, but nowhere else, so that was a confusion point to me. If I look here, it says applicant Dan Poirier. Well, actually, the applicant is the condo association, right?
Right.
Right. And you're the president, and Robert, you're an interested party. Yeah, consultant, if you will, but probably shouldn't be on the application cover page. The, shouldn't all of the individual condo owners, like I'm guessing that your covenants are such that the condo association has common land,
Correct.
right? Probably owns the breakwater and all of that, and, I mean, it's not obvious to us here, but that was my guess. But the individual condo owners they own their condos. Maybe not their roof, but they own their condos, and shouldn't they be listed as abutters on here? Within 200 feet?
No.
Yeah, they're the affected parties. They're the neighbors who are gonna be, I haven't found any way to make sure that all of the people in the association agree with this action right now. And by listing them as abutters, which I think they should be,
No, the association includes all of those people, and it is assumed the agent, if we get an agent authorization, and the correct information, that the president can act in giving the authorization.
so you're saying if the Colony Hotel had some action here, they wouldn't have to notify each of the people that own condos, they would have to send one letter to the condo association.
That's right. It's owned by the whole association.
The land is,
Yeah.
okay.
Interesting.
I'm surprised at
Yeah,
that.
I was wondering the same thing.
Well, if I can just speak, when the colony did do their renovations,
Yeah,
each one of the 24 owners of Point Arundel condo received certified letters. So
right,
each
and
one
That
of
would
us.
surprise
Nina's saying they don't have to, but I thought they did, so,
But on this, they are the association
Yeah.
and the owners are the
well, you're making a change to the common land.
Yeah,
And,
but
and,
the
and they're
president-
neighbors to that.
But the president represents all of those owners, and it is assumed that the president can act for all of those owners.
That
Well, I
is
think they're
correct.
gonna show us the minutes.
I'd like to have something
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
showed that.
I
That's
think
right.
we
The
need
mi-
to
The
have
minutes of a
minutes.
meeting where that was approved, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Talked about the deed. The DEP permit that's in here is marked a resubmission.
That's correct.
I was wondering, what's the history on that?
Well, as I said earlier, we received a letter of deficiency, and when we received the letter of deficiency, we had a pre-submission meeting. So when we had the pre-submission meeting and we
Okay,
corrected our errors, we were told to file it as a resubmission.
all right. But it's really this one issue, and
Correct,
in your mind, it's one submission that's gone through an iteration.
correct.
Okay, understood. How are the stones going to be secured?
They're just gonna be stacked.
Okay,
These stones weigh 500, 600, 700 pounds. They're not gonna move.
Okay, I have some comments on that, but I'll get to them in a minute.
all right.
Okay.
And I asked you about this business of talking about units 6 and 7 and somehow locating them on
Yeah,
the
we can-
larger
yeah.
drawing. That would be helpful. And then, can you say something about how this work would be accomplished? How are the stones going to get there, where they're going to be stored, who's going to do the work,
Well,
time frame?
as I mentioned, George Burr, who is shoreline certified.
You did mention him, yes.
He will bring the stones. They will not be stored on the property. He will bring the stones. We will ask town permission to use the town road,
So Colony Beach Road.
Colony Beach Road, he will come down with his truck and he will put the stones down in one day. He doesn't have a problem with that. And as you know, George is very capable.
I don't personally know him. I'm trying to picture, if I go in the Colony Beach Road, I know there's the entranceway to several units there that are on the right. And then the breakwater that goes laterally and it drops off into the river. How do,
You have the road going on the north end of the beach,
yes,
and it goes to what was the parking lot,
right, right.
okay? There's no access from the road coming into the association property. Okay, everything is
Right.
before you get to that road. And then you have the federal break wall, you have our break wall that joins that.
If you go to this
Yeah.
map here, you'll see the town road and break wall, and you'll see that Burr will come up on the town road on the map. The Wallace here is gonna park his truck with the stones and just drop the stones in.
Right down here, okay, all right.
So it's a one-day job.
Just with a front-end loader or
Yeah.
some such thing,
Yeah.
a forklift
Yeah.
or something.
Probably a crane of some kind, I would think you would bring it.
So really, there's no excavation. No, and this is what's so frustrating for them to hear about, us asking all these questions. They're saying, wait a minute, we just want this guy to come in here. He's
One
gonna-
day,
he's gonna
drop
bring-
some stones.
Put the
Yeah.
stones on, he's gonna make one pile, one road that's 70 foot long, then he's gonna come back and he's gonna add 35 feet on top of that.
But this is what we need on any kind of shoreland work, is that we need description of what is going to happen, where it's going to happen, erosion, sedimentation, how the construction is going to
Or
proceed.
something that's so crystal clear that it's like, in a conclusion that says, and then therefore, we won't need any extraneous erosion control.
And if you go to the land use ordinance and shoreland performance standards, you'll see that you still need an engineer to submit a flood hazard development certificate. I would like to see an engineer weigh in on this and say this is going to do what you think
On
it
the
is going
design,
to do.
on the proposed solution, that it's not gonna do any harm.
Well, that's the biggest one, that you're not
That's the only-
solving this problem, but giving Fred a problem or taking out Colin.
Or that you're just not solving this
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
As we talk this through, my initial concerns about, well, how they getting at it, and are there, you're talking me through that. I'm able to see into your sketches, but I don't think we've hit this fundamental concern that says, how do we know we're not gonna make someone else's problem worse, like the Army Corps maybe did to you? How can we mitigate that? If we can get a tie into the engineers at Army Corps, if that, they're still in place who did this work, and they could be brought in as to speak on this if they were willing, might be one way to do this economically.
Well, yeah, I think we need, I think whatever's proposed here needs to be part of, maybe a start of a general solution to make sure that we aren't complicating somebody else's property, right? So, maybe talking to the Corps of Engineers to see if they can help you, provide you with the work that they did on their wall, see how this wall might affect their work. But the other thing that occurred to me when I looked at your application is that the stones, and this is for your consideration, likely need to be secured to the existing stonework, because, your stones are gonna weigh 5 or 6 tons each, right? They're 7 feet long, 3 feet tall, right?
Yeah.
By 3 feet, that's about a 5-ton stone. So that stone weight can resist a lateral load of about the same weight. In other words, the coefficient of sliding resistance is 1. We're gonna assume that just for ease of what I'm getting ready to tell you. So 5 tons, all right? But the lateral wave load, which will exert a lateral force on the stones, when the 100-year storm hits, is gonna be bigger than 1,000 pounds per square foot. So what I'm saying is that on a conservative side, you could have 1,000 pounds per square foot pushing on your stones, and your projected vertical area is 21 square feet, right? 3 times 7 times 1,000 is 21,000 pounds, which is 10 tons, which is twice the resistance that those stones can provide. So where I'm going with this is to actually make this an engineered product. Well, you need to get your floodplain management certificate, but you need to pin each of those stones to the existing stonework and then make sure that that also can resist the wave load, okay? And of course, there's a lot of material selection about what sort of pin to use, but, and your engineer should advise you on this, but I think you definitely need something like a 1-inch diameter stainless steel pin between the existing stone and the new stone, penetrating each by about a foot. So that's just my observation. Your engineer should counsel you on that, but just placing the stones in place, to me, means you need to have a follow-up plan for how to retrieve those stones once they fall off the edge, or what damage are they gonna do when they do fall off the edge, okay?
Well,
So-
if I may
So,
interrupt.
I'm just saying that, this is something your engineering professional needs to look at.
Okay, but what you're assuming wave pressure on those stones. You
Yep,
have to
it's
remember,
coming.
we're on the riverside, and what we get is the backflow of the water coming up. And there is not a ton of force on that water. It is not like Kennebunk Beach, where they get the direct wave action. We're not getting direct wave action with force. We're getting the backwash around the stone. So there's not a ton of pressure. What we're trying to do is protect the height of the water coming onto the property. It's
Okay.
not so much the
All right.
force of the wave.
Okay, so based on you're not going to add any stones to the rock work along that road out there. You're just going to add stones to the seawall on the, I guess it would be
The riverside.
east side of your development, which is the riverside.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's valid, but then the question is, how are you gonna be sure that you're actually going to block the wave once or it's not the wave, but the water, what's the base flood elevation for your property now? Because it seems to me that if you build up, you could still get water coming around one end that's still going to pose a problem for your development. And once you have a wall there, it's gonna constrain it from draining out. So this is why I think you need the floodplain management certificate, flood hazard certificate. And really, you need to have I think a comprehensive look at the whole area to see that it actually solves your problem. I'm not sure that what you're proposing solves your problem when you get the 100-year storm, because that's what you're aiming to solve.
Right, well, what we're aiming to solve is what's it, the
No,
picture.
that's like the 10-year storm, it's not the 100-year storm. So that's why I'm saying you need to have a professional look at this, geotechnical guy look at it, environmental being a wave type guy, and then take a look at the floodplain management ordinance and see how that affects your solution.
So I heard these fellows tell us earlier that they know over the long term, it's probably gonna be a more comprehensive solution required.
Well, I know, but what
that-
I'm concerned about is that what they're proposing may actually make their situation worse. That's my problem.
If it makes their situation worse, you're not so much worried about you're more worried that it's gonna make someone else's situation
Yes,
worse.
that's my additional info, yeah, additional concern.
That's the thing, the
Yeah.
concern that this board should have. If they wanna spend some money and try something, as long as we can be assured that it's not going to harm either safety of the general public or make a problem for the neighbors, then
Well, if it doesn't solve the problem and those stones go into the river.
that's a problem.
then
That's right.
the problem.
So, and I,
We're not sure it will solve the problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It may send the
saying.
water elsewhere.
That's what I'm not
Right.
sure the
So-
proposal is going to resolve the issue. I think they need a couple of professionals to look at this, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
all right, thank you very much.
So how we gonna what are we gonna do on this?
Well, we need a case manager for this. I think we need to continue initial review if you want to go forward with it.
So I'll do it if you want to.
I would just, defer coming back through the planning board until you have had an engineer do a flood management certificate. But do you want to take
Yeah.
it as?
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to point out that for the earlier Turbot's Creek, we don't have a case manager. Would someone like to volunteer for that? Mike or Ed?
I'll be fine with that.
Okay, I'll put you down for that.
Sure.
Okay. So, for the record, we're going to say that this application is incomplete because we need more information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, if you come up here to the mic. He's got a mic, okay, you can just speak into the mic.
If we don't do something before winter sets in, is there a prohibition about putting sandbags or something on that wall?
The temporary
This-
solution,
I
I
mean,
think.
That I'm aware of.
I think the town could give you a permit for that temporary
I
solution.
believe so.
Yeah,
Some 5-ton sandbags.
Yeah, because we're going to have to do something to try to mitigate what's happening.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to happen again, but it has been recurring, just not as serious as this last one was.
well, they're a conditional use in the riverfront zone. Would they have to come back to the planning board, or can you give that permit?
Is it conditional use?
What's the conditional use?
Yeah. The condo association is a conditional use. Condos are multiplex, and multiplex is a conditional use in the riverfront. So would they
I
have,
mean, this is a temporary,
but it's a
thing.
temporary solution.
I wouldn't, if you guys don't have heartburn over it, I don't,
You mean some temporary solution with sandbags? Is that
yeah,
what you mean?
like for emergency
Some of those
situations.
5-ton sandbags? Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't have to worry about that.
I wouldn't.
So when they come back, we want them to propose a permanent solution if they,
Yeah.
because the sandbags will be placed and then removed after the
Yes.
winter's over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Northampton they had sandbags too
Yeah.
during the flooding, so, I mean,
Yep.
other communities along there have done something
Yeah,
for
Okay.
emergency.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you come back, if you could just, if you come back, please bring some more, engineering backup for your proposal.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is number 240703, 9 Cottage Avenue. If you could state your name. and,
Yes,
the
thank you,
record.
Madam Chair, and thank you to all the distinguished members of the Planning Board. My name is Mark Gallagher. I'm here on behalf of both myself and my wife. We own a cottage at 9 Cottage Avenue. We are applying for approval to lift our home 8 feet. We were significantly impacted by the January 15th storm. It's something we've been contemplating for many years. However, after January 15th, it was clear to us that we needed to do something to ensure that we didn't get impacted again, because we do believe that these storms are going to be more frequent. We have also met with code enforcement, as well as with Galen and Nadia, just to go over what is required of us to present to the board. In our application, one thing I failed to do was to include our survey. And after reading the memo that Galen had submitted to the board, it was clear that there were several areas where there was information that needed to be gained by the board, and I think through that survey, that information will be provided, and I look forward to doing that. And I thank you for your time tonight, and would love to answer any questions or participate in a dialogue.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the survey is just so we can understand, you know, what are the setback distances to the, you know, your property, as long as, so when you get the survey, as long as it has that data. I don't know if you were here earlier when we were talking about Turbot's Creek, but it's that same thing, so we understand the setbacks, we understand the different zones and how they come across it.
Yes.
So if it's as complete as that, and I think the other one on there was showing the sewer line or the water line or whatever. So, you know, as complete as you can possibly get it, so we can kind of do that as a one-stop instead of recycling again.
Thank you. And I will do my best to get that as soon as possible.
And elevations?
That is in the survey, and I'll provide that as well. We are 8 feet above sea level currently. Our hope is that we'll get up over 12 feet, which is my understanding, to get out of the flood zone. The new criteria is 10 feet, and it's our goal, our objective to raise the house possibly 8 feet to get over that 12-foot criteria.
Then I think section 8.3 comes into play again, where there's a 3-foot elevation limitation.
Yeah, it's a interesting section. You know, I was reading that a little bit earlier. Basically, they get the 3 feet allowance before it's considered an expansion. So I'd like to go back in that and really take a look at that section. It was a good provision that we need to look at to see how this relates to, especially with the floodplain, as the state statute allows them to exceed 2 to 3 feet above the base flood elevation. So it's going to be an interesting.
Yeah, it may end up being this is something we couldn't give a waiver on. And I think it may end up being something that we may have to propose a change to the ordinance.
Let's just make sure we're interpreting it correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
It is a strange provision because it's really going to impact people that do try to increase their elevation of their structures to be more resilient. That provision seems like it's outdated, and it looks like it's a shoreline provision, but I could be.
Well, they're not increasing their living space, and they're not increasing the volume of their living space,
And
so.
they're not increasing the total elevation of the building, I don't believe.
Or above.
Well, they
above
are,
the
but
limit.
not above the 35-foot limit.
Not above the
We're actually in Goose Rocks, I
30.
think our limit is 30 feet.
30. in
And
Goose
so
Rocks,
what we
right.
planned on doing was lifting it 8 feet. Where currently our peak is 17, that would put us at 25 from the ground level.
So you only have one level in the house, basically.
We have one level, and then we have an attic. It's a peaked roof with just a
Half
crawl
attic, yeah.
space.
Okay.
Yeah, but you'd be under the 30-foot limit by good measure there.
By 3
We
feet.
would. I was a bit
Yeah.
concerned because on the survey it said 25 feet. What I realized was that was 25 feet from sea level. So I actually went up to the crawl space and I took my tape measure and I draped it down, and it was 17 feet to the ground.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just mention that your application, this is, I got confused earlier. This one, the zone really should say GR, Goose Rocks, not AE 10.
Okay.
Yes.
And this says that it's in shoreland zone. I guess I wanted to just clarify, is that the whole lot is in?
My understanding is the whole
Within the
lot
250?
is within shoreland and it's resource protected.
Okay.
It's in a
so-
coastal wetland.
So we want to check resource protection as well on the application sheet.
Oh, I apologize.
No, we're just trying to get it right.
One thing I wanted to correct from the memo, in the memo it says that it's a primary residence. It's a seasonal cottage. We utilize it from April pretty much through October. Our primary residence is in Kennebunk.
Okay.
Not that it matters.
Yeah.
Can you say something about how the work will be done? It's, Goose Rocks, it's always interesting.
Yes.
It's such a densely populated area.
Yep.
Neighbors are going to be interested in
Yes,
you know, what disruption there'll be.
yes.
Can you talk to that a
I
little bit?
can. So we are located, when you come down Kings Highway, you take a right on Norwood, then you take a right on Cottage. Cottage is a gravel road. The trucks would, whatever equipment that would be utilized to drill down and to put in the wood mats, we have a driveway that's there. My assumption is that's where they would actually stage, you know, the equipment that would be needed to, not only the equipment, but also the materials that are needed to lift the home. What I could do is certainly get that assurance from, we have a contractor. I actually, in the application, I submitted our contract. I could have him do a description if that's
I think that's
helpful
worthy.
to the
That'd
board.
be useful.
Okay.
Worth addressing. I noticed the plans, you marked up, you know, put your name in and all, but they were done for a dam in Surzebek?
Yes, he is actually a contractor who was interested in doing work after the fact,
So he was
and then
gonna
helping us through this process.
He was gonna be like a general contractor?
Yes,
for you.
yeah.
Okay.
Are you removing any trees or vegetation in doing that?
So we have one tree that's located on the south east section of our property. I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that that tree stays there, because my personal belief is that we should not be removing trees for any reason. So I'll talk to the contractor and just make sure that there's an assurance that can be given that that tree does not have to be removed to do this work. I don't believe it would need to be, but I can't guarantee that at this point. I would have to speak to him just to ensure that.
Well, contractors like to make it easy on themselves.
Yes,
I think if you point out that I want it fenced off and nobody goes near the root system and so forth, that
Okay.
he'll begin to understand.
no, and the irony is not lost on me that we'd be removing a tree to.
Well, there are certain requirements and provisions for removing trees in the shoreline zone.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Mike, you kind of covered this, but just trying to look, when I looked at the plans, it was hard to pick up what all the details of the nonconformances was, but in particular, the impervious area, it says 40.51% buildings, and then 424 somethings, no units for other. That just should be broken out.
Yeah, I
Is
looked
it-
at that. I don't know if I'm missing a point, if it's 42.4, but I will double check that.
But if it's 42.4 what? Percent, square feet?
Okay. Let me clarify
It was
that.
just an,
When you do
be clear on
this,
the, yeah.
when you do this survey and bring in a survey, I would look at the memorandum from the planning board. There are a lot of things missing that you will need to address. One of them is to show where the shoreland zone is and to show where the resource protection zone is, but also other things like your roads and your driveways, and I'm assuming you're not putting any new lighting in or anything like that, so.
We are not. I will say that so we had a survey that was done, and for some reason, it did not include the setbacks, but there's other information from that survey that answers some of the questions that were presented in this memo. So I'm going to go back to the survey company and ask them, I don't know if they have to do a completely new survey, or they just or they have the information already but didn't put it onto our
Put
survey.
it on or add it into the layer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they should,
okay.
hopefully they should be able to do that.
Thank
Because, I
you.
mean, to show where the shoreline zone is, that's not something physical you go out and line up your transit and get.
No,
No, no.
So
And
you
the
should-
setbacks can be measured, right?
Yeah, off of the plan and everything. So it's something that should be done with what you have, most likely.
Okay. And I used Lower Village here in Kennebunkport.
Yeah, and
There
then
were
you
people.
can ask for a waiver for topography if it's pretty much a small lot and there are
That's a
no
lot.
big bumps or
I
anything
don't
like
think they're
that.
gonna need contours or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
dead flat there. I guess by default, I'm case manager.
if you like.
Thanks for volunteering, buddy.
Yeah, great.
I think I'm it this time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, we could give it to George.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. All in favor of giving it to George? Aye.
We'll give him the next one.
Yeah.
So that's,
I haven't done a house raising, so this will be something new for me.
Okay.
All right.
We're
I was
gonna
told,
continue this,
I
is
was
that what
told
you're
not to call it a house raising,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
that's
so
good.
we get that.
because people confuse it with knocking it down.
Knocking it
It's like an
down.
Make
Amish
sure you
thing,
call
right?
it lifting.
Oh, ah,
A house levitation.
Okay.
I was thinking barn
Exactly.
raising, right.
so I had a, okay, is my
Go
turn?
ahead.
So I appreciate this drawing, this one.
The engineering plans, yep.
So on that drawing, could you show the base flood elevation on your typical section, just for our ease of reference to know where the base flood elevation is? And in reference to the bottom,
I see. So,
just,
document the elevation level where the
well, the base flood elevation.
oh, the
from-
base flood elevation,
From
okay.
the FEMA flood maps, yeah,
Okay.
just for ease of our reference. And then I noticed that the foundation is gonna be timber, mat, buried. So I know it might be easy for the contractor, but are you sure you wanna support your house on a timber mat? I mean, you might wanna have him rethink that. Concrete might provide better long-term performance, and the top of your foundation, I think, well, I don't know, 4 feet's probably enough, I don't know, but you may wanna confirm that 4-foot burial depth.
Mhm.
Then I also noticed he's proposing galvanized bolts. I know that's very easy, but the galvanizing will wear off over time, and you as the owner, well, it's gonna be well after the contractor leaves the site, so you may wanna ask him to revisit the material selection and avoid galvanizing in this environment. And I noticed he's talking about 316 bolts elsewhere, so, 316L is the ASTM A316L. The L is important, is a useful stainless steel in this environment. So.
And I apologize, could I just get that again? It's the,
ASTM A316, 316L. So he's referring to 316 over here. Don't use 304, it's not sufficient for this environment, not even 316. It's 316L.
thank
Take a
you,
look at the metallurgy, it makes a lot of difference.
thank you. The GRK, that's the galvanized, I assume that you're?
No,
oh,
GRK is that's a reference to a particular screw.
I
These
see.
Those are structural, GRK is a manufacturer of those screws. Now, they are structural screws, but my question was
Mhm.
that see, you've got the bottom, the actual foundation is the 8-inch thick material, piece there. I don't know if that's concrete. I mean, it sort of looks like concrete, but but he's got this note. It says it's 6x8 pressure-treated wood mat. I don't know if you really want to have a wood mat as the foundation for your column. And it's somewhat ambiguous because you've got these little, okay, so he's got, so I guess it looks like he's gonna build up the mat with pieces of timber, and he's gonna connect them with these 12x12 GRKR4 screws. To me, that is, I would ask him to take a look at that and
Okay.
think about having a concrete base and then supporting your pressure-treated pile, because I'm sure it's gonna be a CCA treatment on that pile, right?
Yes,
It'll be a CCA, I think it's 2.5% CCA. So, so the detail would change, but, I mean, you're the owner.
yes.
I don't know if you'd wanna
So
have,
I asked that question about concrete versus the wood mats.
yeah,
And his belief was that the wood mats, the pressure-treated wood mats would be less susceptible to salt water than concrete would be. So what you're telling me is go back and ask that question again.
Well, yeah, I'd ask for a little more data. I don't
Okay.
know if that's true. The concrete, properly placed with, rebar, and of course, I notice he's referring to welded wire fabric over here, so that's, you know, to me, the dimensions on the little 8-inch by 3-foot base seems a little small. May wanna have him consider something slightly bigger and slightly deeper with 2
Was
rows
this-
of rebar, you know, number 4, number 5 bars. That's more traditional. I don't know, I haven't seen anybody propose a timber mat as the supporting, base for any columns around here.
Okay.
I've never seen that before anywhere.
Who is
I would never propose.
who is the engineering firm
I
that?
don't know.
It's,
It says it's,
the engineering firm is Criterium, they're out of Freeport.
Okay.
The actual contractor is James Merry out of Scarborough.
Okay.
well, anyway,
Just ask the question, as a
Just
big,
ask
the Okay.
just,
Yeah.
just give him another poke.
you as the owner, you know, you may wanna just ask for some documentation. But the concrete has proven, I think, is more reliable. Of course, then there's the connection, then there's the question about how to connect your timber pile to the concrete, but there's standard details available to do that. Anyway, the whole thing looks like it needs a little more
Okay.
study.
Just ask them, Mark, the other thing is, since you are in the floodplain, just make sure that the professional engineer signs off on the elevation, certification for this proposed structure.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think that'll alleviate a lot of the concerns of the board.
yeah.
So Criterium would actually sign off on the elevation?
Yep.
That would be proposed?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And on your rebar, if you do go with concrete, you don't wanna just use regular rebar unless you coat it some kind of fusion bonded epoxy coating. I mean, your contractors know about this, or stainless steel again. 316L is a useful rebar material for concrete in this environment. Anyway, just ask him to take another look at it.
We're going to take another look at this whole section down below.
Yeah, thank you, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Are there more questions? No? Okay, all right. Well, we'll wait. Are we going to continue the initial review?
Okay.
Wait until you have a survey with more information on it? For our next, if you can get it in within 7 days to the planning board, we can pick that up on the 21st,
Wonderful.
okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you for
And
your time.
again,
Greatly
this is the
appreciate it.
Same offer on this, that could be brought versus mailed?
Copies can be brought for the
Yeah.
planning board members to pick up.
Yeah,
Pick up,
Yes.
right, so you
Uh-huh.
don't
If
have to
you-
go through the front of the post office.
yeah.
We're not saying that the planning office will make the copies
Right,
for us,
Right,
just
instead of
the
mailing.
avoidance
all
of
the
doubt.
padding, Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll provide all documentation, make,
Instead of going to the post office, though,
Yes.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Just drop them off.
our new distribution center.
Yes.
So then I,
We're expedited distribution center.
then I guess we get an email to confirming that they've arrived?
Yes.
Available for pick, okay.
Yes.
Thank
You mean you don't daily go to the code enforcement office?
Well, no,
Just to say hi?
I don't, I mean, I
You
should.
don't? Oh my God.
I think
thought that was a
we're gonna
requirement.
work out a new process, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna get charged for storage if we don't go pick them up directly.
That's right, that's right.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. This
Thank
is-
you.
yeah, thank you.
okay.
Kings Highway,
Because
maybe.
of problems with mail, 9 Cleves has been moved to the 21st. So
So-
that's application 240784.
I do have a request for feedback. The applicant understands that he will be put forward later, 2 weeks from now. He wanted to address some of the issues in the planner's memo. Do you want that supplemental information ahead of time, or?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Anything we can get ahead of time is
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
7 days ahead of
Okay,
time.
so I can tell him to bring it in by next week, and
We'll pick it up.
Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
we will pick it up.
I
yes.
have let him know.
Thank
Okay.
you, that'd be great.
Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to our last application, which is 240303. Don't go hoo-hoo, we have stuff after that, old business. And that's 773 Kings Highway. Christy Kenny is the agent, and this is a public hearing, but why don't you explain a little bit before we go forward?
I'll just give you a brief summary. I'm Christy Kenny from KW Architects. I am here representing the Jones family. We are proposing to move the existing garage, which is outside of the setbacks, back further into the lot to be less non-conforming. It will be this, we are changing the square footage from 579 square feet to 575 square feet. And the only change made from the last hearing is that I've cleaned up the documentation and submitted it to Galen, which there was an inconsistency in the square footage of the garage in the surveying document. So I've had the surveyor go back and update that so that they're all consistent, stating that the existing garage is 579 square feet. So the lot coverages should be consistent between the application, the proposed site plan, the 2018 site plan, and the 2024 as-built survey.
Okay. Do we have questions from the board?
Mike, you're the case manager for this?
I don't remember that.
No?
I am.
George is the case manager for this one.
George is the case manager, and
Apologies.
he will be reviewing the video. I asked him to review that. So,
So,
No questions.
do we need the application updated with the correct? Because the problem was trying to connect the dots between the different things. So do we need an updated application to show, or how does that work?
I did submit the application, the updated application and the updated
And-
surveys to
okay,
Galen.
Okay, so, and the numbers all meet? Okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
the numbers
question
have
I-
been submitted. That was what we asked before.
Yeah.
Right,
And updated, good.
so that makes the application complete. I have a couple of questions. Well, one first, we need a waiver for topography. I think that was not on the plan. Yeah,
Yep, it was a fairly flat lot.
it's a fairly flat law.
Yeah.
And that would be the reason for the waiver. Okay, I'll make a motion then that we approve a waiver, and topography does not have to be, is not required for this plan.
Okay, I'll second that.
All those in favor? Ed?
Right.
All right.
I am in favor.
Approved, yeah. In
Okay,
favor.
Mike is approved. Okay. I mentioned before about trees.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at since this is a non-conforming lot, looking at LUO 248.3B4, relocation of a non-conforming structure. Trees removed in order to relocate a structure must be replanted with at least one native tree, 3 feet in height for every tree removed, so forth and so on. You might want to take a look at that because there is a requirement that that vegetation is replaced. So you cannot just remove the trees.
I don't think
And-
my owner would have any problem with that.
Okay. It should be native vegetation. And any ground cover that was destroyed or removed should be replaced as well. You wouldn't
Yes.
want to do that anyway, since you have flooding in the front.
Yeah, we have a note.
Right. And
I don't
frankly,
see a note here, but we do plan to revegetate the area of the old garage.
okay. Frankly, since you're in flooding areas in the shoreland zone there, I would put as many trees as possible out there.
And, yeah,
To
and
help with
flood
stormwater.
tolerant plants.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had. If there are no other questions, I'll open the public hearing. And since there's no one in person in the audience here, I'll ask if there are any hands out there?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, there are no comments. Then I will close the public hearing, and I'll ask for a motion.
I would move that we approve this application.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor? Ed?
Yes.
I'm in favor.
In favor?
Okay. The application is then approved, and George, I believe, will be writing a findings of facts, which will be read on the 21st. You don't have to be here to have them read, but they will need to be recorded in the registry before any permit is issued.
Okay.
Okay.
Will someone just email me when they're ready to be picked up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, I can do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And now we come to old business, a discussion regarding planning board rules and procedures moving forward. And I know that I've made comments on changing the rules, made some suggestions. Galen has made some suggestions,
I have a
And-
bunch of suggestions.
and George has some, and Mike
Yeah.
had some comments, and Ed had some comments.
So Nadia's gonna bring it up on a big screen if that helps.
Wow.
That way, we can all follow along and folks online can,
ball.
yeah. I thought it'd be kind of hard to read it from there, so hopefully you can.
I made some comments today. So
Yes.
is
Yep, they're all
completely
there.
up to-
Yep.
Okay, then I don't need my computer.
So you're good? Okay.
So just kind of.
So can you all see that, or do you need it bigger?
No, I don't need it bigger.
Okay, so if we want to go down, so every person on the board had access to this document just to give suggestions ahead of time. So folks all just have a general idea of what we were thinking, but we weren't taking action and actually having a thorough discussion until we were in person. And so we'll just go step by step in each section, and you guys can make a decision on what you'd like each section to be changed to. Nadia can certainly make any changes while you guys build consensus on what you'd like your rules to be. So the first section we have here is the section 3, which is the membership period. Nadia, do you want to go over what the notes are?
Yeah, so first we have a note from Mike. The terms members, board, voting member, regular member, non-voting regular member, alternate members are used, and it isn't always clear who the term means. So this isn't there's no suggested edit language here, but just a comment from Mike. So if you have anything further you'd like to share, please feel free.
How do I gotta turn this around?
Okay.
Yeah, I just reading through it, it seemed that there were a lot of, the term was used not necessarily defined and used many different ways, and I kind of at times got lost as to who was what and what was, what's a board member versus a voting member versus all the other ones they had, and I just didn't know if there was a way to standardize it, and so it was very clear what was being discussed.
I found it was clear.
All right, maybe it's just me being confused.
I found it was clear because it says there are 7 members.
So just to be clear, this comment that we're talking about isn't about paragraph 405-3.
Yes, it is.
Mike,
Well, it
help me
was,
out.
I had it,
I thought this was on the whole document.
it is, it's one there, but it's across the document, not just that line, so.
Non-voting regular members, there's nothing in there.
Yeah, but if you go back to the membership and read the first sentence,
Yeah,
it's
7
pretty
members.
clear. It says there are 7 members. And we're talking about the board, so there are 7 members.
Yeah.
Of whom 5 are regular and 2 are alternate members.
Yeah.
So it includes all the 7 members, and it says 5 of them are regular and 2 are alternate. And that term members is used throughout And I think I found it pretty darn clear that we're talking about members of the board. And throughout it, it does talk about when certain members who are voting and certain members who don't vote. And it
So
clarifies
maybe we could just keep, Mike, you could bring this, we should keep this in mind, and you could bring us back to this
As we-
general comment as we go
Yes.
As
through.
we go through.
Yeah, because
just
I think
noticed
we
some-
want to,
yeah.
we want to take this general comment, which I'm open to clarifying and apply it
As it,
specifically.
yeah, as we go through, it just hit me as, you know, at
Yeah.
some points I've got capital letter B, board.
Yeah,
So what is capital B, board?
How is that
than
different?
the
Yeah.
7 members, or is it just
Right.
the regulars, or is it everybody?
understood.
All right, so our next section is some additions from
Could
Ed,
we-
I believe.
Can we go back and start at the first part of the document, even though there doesn't happen to be a change? Let's just set the stage here. Is the purpose, are we happy with that?
Yeah.
I liked the fact that it tied it back to the administrative code. And then you'll see that it's me that proposed this addition to the membership, basically to echo. So we didn't have to go back and forth between, it's a pretty succinct 4 or 5 sentences from 524, and I just wanted to capture the fact that it flowed. So they tell you in there, the Board of Selectmen's document says, hey, that's a 7-member board, there's 5 are members. This was a little more succinct than what's in 524, but it didn't have anything about reappointment. So why not capture that and put it all in one place?
Are you copying that in from 524?
Yeah, I may have paraphrased, but I generally copied it, yeah.
So 524 has a section about reappointment after 1 year of non-service.
Right,
Okay.
that's almost word for word if it's not. You can bring that up if that would be helpful.
No, I thought that was fine.
So the other one in 504-4, the organization, are we there yet?
504, no, 405?
405-4, organization?
We haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
We okay with this? Members shall attend and complete a training session
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a state statutory
sponsored
requirement.
by MMA.
Might as well
You have to do it.
put it there, though.
You can put it there, that's fine.
I think that came from 524,
Yeah.
Right.
so.
Yeah, but, okay, so how would that be activated? Would the code enforcement or inform the member that they need to attend the course?
Yes, or the planning department
We-
would
Somebody,
inform.
the planning department is gonna
I-
tell.
I think
if
it's a
Yep.
chair, let's go down to the chair, but I think it's a chair responsibility to make sure that
the chair
happens.
is, oh,
We asked the city
Gotta be-
clerk that, because she keeps track of all
The
your
city
trainings.
clerk usually
so
does
then,
that.
okay, so
Because
April
she
does or
keeps-
Nadia?
We should be clear on that.
The city clerk is Tracy.
Oh, Tracy?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tracy's gonna send us an email when we need to go?
Yes. Yep, and then the town pays for it for you. Like, if you need to go to MMA, we just sent a bunch of ZBA members, they had to go do their training, and we paid
Okay.
for it.
And I just got mine for the select board, so the town will let you know when they're available.
Okay, well, that's different. We need to know when we need to go.
Well, it depends, sometimes they're held in other places, you can do them by Zoom too, so they will let you know when there are sessions available for you to attend. So they're not telling you when you have to go.
Okay, we'll wait to hear from Tracy.
Yep.
Tracy to advise. Got it.
So is there a way for us in our rules and procedures document to answer Larry's question that says, maintenance, a record of all training and notification of requirements will be maintained by the town clerk,
Clerk, I
or
think that's
whoever it is.
important.
Yeah, I think so
Who
too.
will also advise board members when they need to go to a course, something like that. She's
So
gonna
I'd like-
maintain the
yeah.
training schedule.
Isn't that responsibility in 524? Yeah, I don't think we need to
I don't think it is.
repeat-
I don't think you need to make it so tight.
Yeah, I don't think
I
we
think
need
this
to
gets the
repeat
fact that you have to
524
attend
in
a
this.
training session at some
Okay.
point.
All right,
All right,
believe me, you'll get an email.
okay, all right.
We will make sure that
I
you,
know.
Okay, yeah, send me an email.
yes.
Otherwise, you can't be a case manager.
Okay.
Wow.
put some teeth into it.
Okay, 405-4, I took out the first part of that sentence because it didn't make sense. And I think somebody made a comment that wasn't the way we did it anyway. Was
So,
it you, Ed?
so
Well,
I,
I just thought
Oh,
it
Nadia.
wasn't, it's not,
No, it's
because,
from Mike, yeah, it's from Mike.
it's,
And you're right.
we don't annually do this, because that's the way it read to me. If- After the first meeting of the first meeting of each annual town meeting, the board shall elect.
yes, that is a custom that even for your Board of Selectmen, they elect their chair, their vice chair, and their secretary annually. It's after the town
Do
meeting.
we do that here?
We are supposed to.
Yeah, that's what the way it
And we
read
did
is-
that with, this last,
But this happened,
July.
But we only did it after Tom stepped down. We didn't do it, we let Tom fill out his 6-year term, basically, and we never brought it up.
It should be an annual
yeah,
It should
practice.
be an annual?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
because that's.
Every
524.
board,
Can you
selectmen,
bring up
all these other
524?
boards.
I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Just from the reading of it, it said to me that. it was
Admin
annual.
code, let's go down to planning board. There it is, 524.
It says it annually. The members of the planning board shall elect annually from its membership.
Which-
Oh, better put that first part of the sentence back in then.
Yeah. I just didn't know if you were thinking you wanted a different time to do this. I thought that was a good benchmarker, was the first annual meeting, because that's just set in stone.
What is the
Yeah.
first annual meeting, first in January?
It's after the town vote for the budget, so that's in what, June?
So why don't we just add that word, the board shall annually elect a chair and a vice chair from among the regular members.
Yeah, but when are you doing it annually? Is it calendar year? Is it the annual meeting fiscal year? What are you going to?
I think we have to leave the first part of the sentence in there, because we
Yeah.
need a time span for doing that.
That's it, I mean, that clarifies it. After
Okay.
the annual town meeting, that's the
Yeah.
first meeting, yeah,
So just leave that
So
in.
disregard that.
okay, good.
Very good.
And I'm sorry for the deletion. That was my suggestion.
Which deletion? Oh,
It was regarding the secretary. So normally the secretary is a employee of the town.
Right.
Maybe we need to just put parentheses around the secretary that it can be an employee of the town or something to that sort. That was what I was trying to get to, but in reading that sentence, I might have stricken that out accidentally, because you should be electing, the members should be electing your chair and vice chair and
yeah,
secretary
but
from its members.
this proposed change here on D captures that, Galen, pretty
Yep.
well. So we could just take out the deletion
Right, yep,
and may be an employee of the town is, I think it's a good, it's a
There you
good
go.
proposal.
so we can remove that across.
I wanted to know, like, do they have to vote officially on each change?
No, they're just
that we
doing
actually make?
consensus.
Okay.
So you're all doing consensus right now, and then you can vote on the final rendition at the end of your review.
So
that?
at the end of this sentence, it should be, and a secretary employed by the town, right?
No,
No,
Huh?
no, we're leaving it open.
doesn't have to be.
In,
Okay.
down here in,
You looking for a job?
Hang on, well, sure. So, comma, who could be employed by the town?
Well, it's,
Go
it's
down
covered
further.
down
Go
here.
down to
Here.
D. Secretary shall be responsible, but
Alright.
may be an employee of the town.
Okay,
Yep,
all right.
so let's go
Okay.
back up.
all right, so.
We voted for Tricia.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
All right.
Good,
I second
yes.
that.
Oh, here's where I think, Mike, you were a little confused again.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Won't be the last.
Where am I?
Okay, so what was Mike's comment, Nadia? The next comment?
I can't see that far.
It was the chair organization,
Why does vice chair have a comment on
vice
it?
chair. Why does that have a comma?
This is the annual appointments comment.
The way it's
Oh.
written, it sounds like its appointments are annually, so that's Mike's old comment.
So we've resolved that
Yep.
comment.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
that sorted
Yep.
under organization.
You got it.
Yeah, it is supposed to be annually. That's why it sounds that way.
And then I think the next one is Larry's comment, I believe, under subsection 2 of the chair. Or is that Ed?
I don't-
Or I made a question, I'm sorry.
Oh, you
Yeah, it
asked,
looks like a question from
when could
Galen.
this happen? And then I fantasized a response.
Right.
Says, yeah, that might happen if
It's a
the
good
chair
theory,
recused
yeah.
themselves. You know, recused,
right.
recused themselves.
Yeah, that was just a question.
Yeah, so, so you okay with that?
Yep, I think that was a good theory of why that, yeah. I just was reading that, I was like, okay, well, what would
Yeah,
this?
well, it's a good question,
Yeah,
yeah.
And I guess I had a comment there.
Don't we
where-
call that case manager?
Yeah, don't we call it a case manager instead of a manager? Yeah,
Well,
why don't we
you
get it?
can put in here, case manager, and then in parentheses, manager, and then wherever you use it going forward, it will be manager.
is that fine?
Why don't we
with
just
everyone?
call it case
However,
manager,
okay.
which is what we always call it?
Yeah, I was just trying to
I
get
thought he
it
had
to
a good
match
point.
what we had. You know, we call it case manager, let's call it case manager.
Don't put in the
That's you guys, that's,
parenthetical,
yeah,
please.
that's your decision, I'm not,
Well, it's just.
I don't have
it
heartburn.
Saves words,
yeah.
okay? That's the only time we use manager. Is throughout the document. And so saying case manager and in parentheses manager, you can use manager throughout the rest of the document. You don't have to change anything.
Is everyone fine with that?
As long as that's what we call it.
Okay. Okay.
Number 8.
And I think I put in the normally, just in case somebody else had to take over and do findings of fact or something else.
So let me say here that this triggered the thought to me that is much, it requires a lot more than a sentence. I think in general, we should be clear on what our work products are, who produces them, and when. And I think it seems to vary. It's different for subdivisions than it is for site applications. It's different for initial and preliminary than it is for final on the subdivisions. It seems to be different, I just found out last session or two, for when we reject. We don't produce a findings of fact, we produce a rejection letter. And that doesn't come from the board, it comes from the chair, and so on and so forth. I think we've been just saying, well, Tom, what do we do here? And we've been doing it.
It doesn't have to come from the chair.
Well, how do I know that? Why don't we say, this is what the board does?
Well, that's not what we're
Under what
saying.
conditions?
We're saying this is what the chair does.
No, we say the manager will normally prepare findings of fact upon conclusion of the reviews by the board. Now, the fact that that's under the chair is a little weird, but I think there needs to be a section that says, the board does this. We do this for site applications, we do this for sketch plans, we do this for the 5 or 6 different things we do. Because otherwise, where is it that says that we only produce findings of facts on approved site applications and approved final subdivision
That's in another
plans?
section. I think you commented on that in another section.
This is, I think, the only place I commented on it, but
Because I had comments on 40511, management applications,
Yeah.
because
maybe that's where it belongs.
yeah, because it got a bit, again,
Oh, and Larry, you had a comment about one of those that maybe that was the one that said the case manager. I said, yeah, but he doesn't always produce, he or she
Right.
doesn't always do a findings of fact.
well, and it's the case manager, or the manager capital shall have primary responsibility for administration of the application and for communications on behalf of the board with the applicant and the director of planning and development, code enforcement officer.
Where's that now?
That's 504-11, management application. And I didn't think that's exactly.
405-11. Can we bring that up?
Yeah, it was.
405-11, management application.
Management of applications. Well, so we don't need to say this in two places, that first sentence. Right? Didn't we added it under chair. Maybe it needs to go here instead of the chair.
Yeah,
Ed, I would agree with you.
yeah.
It doesn't, not that I'm on the board, but from an outsider's perspective, that manager, that, under the chair does not, the chair appoints a manager.
Yes.
That's what the chair does.
Right.
Full stop. The manager then produces whatever else is there, so it should be down in the manager's
And the
section.
manager, does some different things
Yeah.
under different situations. And that's where I was going with my anecdotal.
So would you guys like to move this
Yeah.
sentence down?
Yeah,
No,
just-
just delete that sentence, because I think we got it covered.
Unless you wanted to put it down in the management section for right now and then come back to it once you get down there, but it doesn't belong under the, it doesn't belong to the chair.
Kind of out of there.
Cut it here, when you go to paste it in
Yeah.
-11, I think you're gonna find it's already there.
Cut page down.
A member shall, the manager shall have primary responsibility. Oh, it's not already there.
We'll just stick it here at the end
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah,
Can-
okay. Good stuff.
And is that person
My bad.
actually doing what we say there? They're the
No,
person primary
And I don't think
responsible?
they should be. They shouldn't be
Yeah.
responsible for the administration of the application. I think the chair does that.
It just hit me as this wasn't what we were doing.
Yeah, you're right.
No. No, I think management of applications is different from this.
But you could probably address that when you come down to it.
Yeah, let's.
I'd go back up to the
and
chair.
Continue, continue on when we come to it. You
It's
may
very
think of
easy to
more
go down the
things
rabbit
that-
holes.
Yeah, no, I would just go in order,
Yeah.
because then you can,
You at least claim some credit at the end of tonight.
Great.
Okay, so where are we now on?
chair dash 4.
What else does the chair do? In number 4,
So Galen and I were actually talking about this one and think that, Dave and Mike usually handle all of the
Yes.
microphone placement, everything, so
Yeah.
we thought that this doesn't really
so why
fit.
don't we
I don't
just
think we
remove
need
that?
to do
The board
that.
doesn't do this.
That's good.
Okay, are we gonna
And I
capture
don't
that somewhere
wanna
else?
do that.
No, it's not a board responsibility.
That's right. The town has people that do it.
That's theirs.
The town will do that on behalf of the board? Is that how we're gonna have a section in here about what the town does
No, these are our
on
rules,
behalf
not theirs.
of the board? No?
Does it say that the town has to provide a location? Does it say the town does Zoom?
That they have to provide eats.
We could go
Well,
crazy.
they
We could
should.
Spend
Again,
a lot
this-
of energy here, that's all. I'm with you that it's missing, but
This document should really be helping you in your efficiency of your meetings and
Okay.
you understand.
Well, and
the
it
roles.
should be able to help the public to
Yeah.
understand what's going
yeah,
on.
that's
Right.
right,
All right.
that's right.
Seek to maintain a close liaison with the selectmen, yes, code enforcement, planning and I added planning and development because before, we've just had a code enforcement officer, a code enforcement office
Right.
listed there, and we don't do that anymore. But because the code enforcement officer works very closely with planning and development on permits and on the land use ordinance, I think they're important enough to be in there. The selectmen and the town manager oversee the planning board, so they're very important too. And then just adding other appropriate boards, committees, and officials, they can come in as needed. You don't need to list them all.
No,
Correct.
there's too many of them
Or they
in
could
town.
change at any,
Like, we meet with other boards or other committees occasionally
Yeah.
to work out issues. But these are the important
Yeah.
offices.
The only question I had was up under goals that we were support the town comprehensive plan. Who owns that, and should they be somebody that is it covered in those people identified in 5?
Yes, the town's comprehensive plan is voted upon, I believe, by the whole town. Out of that comes the land use ordinance.
Yep.
And the subdivision regs, which we use for administration of our duties. So,
So there isn't necessarily a keeper of the town comprehensive plan?
Yeah, that's me.
That's you?
oh, that's
Okay.
Galen's.
Yeah, we have,
He's
Okay,
already
so
in
we're
there.
there with code enforcement.
Yep.
I just wanted to make
So,
sure it was you. not
the
somebody
director of
else.
planning is in control of the comprehensive plan. Is that the idea?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Well, so can we go back to that?
Okay.
No, where we were.
Oh.
There we go.
Right here.
I understand and generally agree with the idea of having the Planning and Development Office be in this sentence. But I think that if we leave Code Enforcement Officer, it suggests that we're gonna do two different things, and we're not. We're gonna coordinate with the Planning and Development Office, which includes the Code Enforcement Officer. So I don't wanna call them out separately. I think it's confusing.
Would you like to get rid of code
I
enforcement
would.
officer?
The
So-
Planning and Development Office, I would like to say.
Does the code enforcement officer work for the planning and development?
yeah, they work for the Department of Planning and Development. That's,
They are part of the
Right.
staff that
Yes.
that we see
Yep.
quoted on these memos and all.
Yeah.
yep.
So we can eliminate them from
Yep.
this, basically.
Well,
I mean-
we've got them redundantly here now, and it sort of suggests we think they're two different things, and they're not.
That's fine. You can put just Department of Planning and Development or the
Well
town's
put.
Department of Planning and Development.
Staff.
That includes the code enforcement officer.
You don't have,
Yeah. Department of Planning and Development.
Is that official, Department of Planning? and
Yep,
Development?
that's our
The-
official.
The other comment I'll make here is that we do, it seems like the Growth Planning Committee, we should have a stronger relationship with, and we don't. We do have an overarching goal to serve the comprehensive plan, which is created and I believe maintained by the Growth Planning Committee. I know they're looking at possibly making changes to it. It is a 10-year document, but I think there's possibility of changes. If we're going to call out any other boards, that would be the one. Having said that, I'm fine with the way it's worded now.
No, we don't meet with the Growth Planning Committee.
I know we don't.
And I recognize they make changes to the LUO, but Shade Tree Committee also looks at
They
making changes to the
propose
LUO.
changes to it.
Yeah.
They don't make changes to it.
Well, propose changes, yes. But I think covered with other appropriate
I'm good.
boards is good. Okay?
Next,
Ready to move on?
item 6.
This is just a grammatical
Yep.
change.
Get the right insurer.
Yes.
I think that's correct. I'm not the grammar police.
We
but-
Googled it,
Yeah.
did some research.
I like 7, I like 8.
I had a problem with the term indoctrinate.
I was gonna say, number 8 is the member of the public, you gotta get another
Oh, you
word for
obviously need some
indoctrination.
reprogramming.
That's right. I've told that before. There's got to be a better word that can be used there. That one kind of hit me in the head.
Appropriate training,
Training.
There you go.
training or
Onboarding is another
Onboarding.
one,
indoctrination.
Just seemed a bit harsh.
Should we go with onboarding?
Did you bring your capes and your hoods and
I don't think onboarding is a real word.
onboarding's not a word?
It's what we would use for
It is
employees,
an
so
employees.
Oh, it's a
Orientation.
nautical term, of course, we would use that. Permission to come on board, sir.
So we're gonna use training, is that what we're gonna do?
I would
That's
like that.
Yeah, training's fine, everyone.
Yeah.
anything that's not indoctrinating me.
As long as we're not indoctrinating people.
Could we change, I would propose to delete the word new.
Well, that's for,
Be ongoing, I mean. you know,
Ensure that members receive appropriate training and are supplied with appropriate materials.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with that. And there should be some annual
Well,
updating.
You'll be getting your email.
we refer to it as continuous education.
Continuous improvement.
That's right.
All
Oh,
right, you're all
yes.
gonna be tested.
Corporate America, I'm back in it. There we go. Oh, here's,
already
and,
And that was deleting
well,
it.
here's a Mikeism though, as presiding member, there's a new term. What does that mean?
I
What?
have no idea.
Presiding
You
member is the
obviously need
chair.
more indoctrination.
Pres-
That's defined up above.
That's,
It is?
that's defined by the chair, yes.
So the chair appoints?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, where did it?
Go up
Could we
to-
just go back and remind me?
Where the chair is.
It'll say,
Basically, if the chair can't make it, the chair has to step
Serve
down.
as presiding member.
Yep.
Oh, okay, all right.
Uh-huh.
All right, so it flows from that, thank you.
So we got that.
Only one shall be
are
in
we fine with that
charge.
deletion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. An alternate.
Okay, so I will explain this as best I can, and this comes from the MMA Planning Board manual that we have. So this is if someone misses a meeting, how can they be allowed to join a meeting after the fact? And so in the MMA manual, it does say it is best practice, attorneys recommend it, that if a person misses a meeting, that they, of course, not only just catch up on all the recordings and receive all the materials, but that the applicant has no issues with this. And so why that's important is in any kind of appeal that might try to take place. If the applicant had no objections to that person, it solidifies against any kind of appeal that might occur. So I know that was a concern that you had, Nina, and I just wanted to clarify that is what that language, why we put applicant consent.
Okay.
I don't see them opposing it, any applicant opposing.
Well, we just had a situation where George is not present.
Right.
And he's going to do the video, and then he'll do a findings of fact, but we didn't
Yep.
ask the applicant for confirmation.
And I don't think she's having an issue with,
Right.
Yeah, but
I just-
we needed, if we're gonna have this, we gotta have a way of monitoring it and tracking it.
Well, I think confirmation is okay because we had videos, and a verbal confirmation would be all right in this
Well,
situation.
yeah, but you gotta have a way to track this.
Well, that's what I just said.
It's set on the video.
Yes.
Yeah,
If
but
we ask the applicant, is it okay if the member who missed the meeting but viewed the video, vote on your application, and
And
they
I'd
say
like-
yes?
And I'd like that in the minutes.
Yes, it can go in the minutes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the way to track it formally, by making sure that it's minuted, if we ever have that.
Okay, but that doesn't go to court. That doesn't ever go to court, by the way,
What,
because those are the minutes.
Yeah, but then we've documented it somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
key.
Okay.
and I've had this happen in other municipalities where it was like a ZBA member missed the meeting, and the applicant, of course, they didn't want that person to do it, and we had to follow the doctrine, because otherwise they could have appealed it to a higher court, because we didn't follow our protocols. So I just want to make sure that was aware.
Well, it's one issue that they could bring up to the court.
Yep.
They can appeal
Yeah,
anything.
they can appeal anything, but they try to find anything, and that's,
You could conceivably get to the situation, though, where you didn't have a quorum, even though everybody was there. If one person had missed a meeting and then another person, and the applicant didn't want them to. So this could be sticky, and so I go back to, I
Okay.
agree with Mike, we need to track. When decisions like this are made, it needs to be minuted. Can we go back to 405-5 here? Voting members, because this is sort of the setup. And I'm not quite sure, well, I'm quite sure this isn't what we're doing now, 405-5. And I think we should make it say what we're doing, or we should decide to do what it says.
Why aren't we doing it?
Yeah, that looks like what we're doing, isn't it?
If it becomes necessary to determine which alternate member should vote, precedence shall be given to the person with longer service on the board.
Oh, well, we've been.
That's
John's been
definitely not
switching
what we
back
do.
and forth.
We've been flipping it back and forth, yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
Well,
we should
pres-
say then the chair shall designate.
No, precedence is given.
Yeah.
The chair doesn't designate, the precedence is just given to the person with longer service of the board.
Well, I'm saying let's not do that then, because that's not what we're doing.
Go
We're
up.
alternating now, and I think it's been working fine. Why do we want to change that? Otherwise, you get one alternate member who doesn't ever vote, and we're not going to keep them. You want to engage them. You want them to be case managers.
That's the general practice I've seen because it is,
Which is the general practice?
the general practice is to rotate between the members to keep them
Yeah.
involved because it
Yeah.
is,
Well, why would you show up
yeah,
if you're
that's,
just sitting there,
if
right?
you're the,
Okay, well, let's change.
I mean, so the chair could choose which one of the alternates.
Well, that's
Well,
what,
but-
that's what
yeah.
we've been doing. Say, well,
Yeah.
tonight, it's going to be you, George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or did you do it last time? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, right now, we don't have any
they could
alternates.
rock, paper, scissors for it. I mean,
So
that's,
it's- so it's moot, but the chair shall
An arm
designate.
wrestle.
yeah.
Okay, which member should vote? The chair shall designate which alternate will vote.
Well, if you guys want to do it on a rotating system, I mean, you could put in the,
The rotation.
in here that,
No, we won't be able to remember from 2 weeks in a row.
No,
In
no,
trouble with what I had for breakfast. Come on.
I can't remember after I left this room. Sometimes I have
what
to
are
go
we
back to
gonna
the
say?
video.
So we're gonna say the chair shall designate which alternate,
Will
Then
vote.
does that get added into
okay.
chair shall? And become a
Well,
bullet point there?
I think it
under
could stay,
504?
no,
No, I don't think it needs to go up there.
Yeah,
it's not that big a document.
You want to say chair or presiding member?
Yeah, the presiding member.
The chair or the presiding member?
No,
well,
no,
the chair
Just the
could be
presiding member.
Just the presiding member, yeah,
not the chair,
No.
just the presiding member.
presiding member,
Good catch.
yeah.
Or
Okay,
the PM for short,
right,
Prime Minister?
yeah, that's it.
maybe. All right, we are at number 10.
Okay, we're all good with that.
Downing Street, yeah. So let me just reread number 3 again to make sure that.
No,
where
no,
we
back
were.
down, not
Good.
Oh, I see.
Right
Well,
there.
that one.
Let's read that one we talked about so
405.
much,
6-3.
which caused me to go back to 4055. Was not present. Members who weren't. They attest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, hold on. No, I thought we said that the applicant had to approve it.
So,
That's the second sentence.
so why
Where?
that says if
Con-
applicable is if you have an ordinance change or something that's not really an applicant, that's not applicable.
Yeah.
Confirmation by the applicant is
Yes.
required, okay.
Yep.
All right. So we could shorten this to just say, if they attest that they watched the previous recorded meeting. We don't need all that attest to the planning board and to the Zoom audience and to the, you know,
I don't know
raise.
what you mean.
Here, just from after a test, I would delete to the planning board and applicant if applicable. They attest that they watched the meeting,
Full stop.
full stop, you know, well, I can't see it, that they watched the previously recorded meeting and keep going. This is a good way of doing it. That's good. That's my proposal.
Okay.
A little
Yeah,
clearer.
So the members who were not present may request to vote if, okay, who are they gonna make the request to? The request to the chair, to the
Presiding member.
Yeah.
I think we need to request to the presiding request to the presiding
Well,
member.
that implies that it's up to the chair to decide whether they're going to.
Well, but how are you gonna, who's gonna record the vote? See, how is the request gonna be recorded and how is the vote gonna be recorded? So there's gotta be a point of
Well, that's
contact.
gonna be in the
It's gotta be
minutes.
the presiding
Gotta be
member.
minutes.
That'll be in the minutes.
Yeah.
That's how you keep record of, I mean, we do that at the beginning of the meeting when we designate an alternate, we say this person is now
Otherwise,
voting.
the board's gonna be voting on it and everything. We need a delegate, if the chair's willing, that's what we should, that would be the cleanest way.
I think so,
Or the PM, yeah.
So we're happy with the presiding member?
But it sounds like the presiding member is the one who makes the decision, and I think it should be request to the planning board. You're going to make the request to the planning board, not to the presiding member.
You think the planning board should vote on a member being allowed to?
Yes.
Well, okay, no, here's the situation.
Okay.
In this meeting, George is not here.
Yeah,
So if George wants to vote on one of these measures that we voted on, he's not here, but my view is he would phone Nina to say that he had reviewed the video and he wants to cast his vote as follows, to be recorded
Yeah.
as I don't know, to be recorded in, I guess in the supplement to the minutes. I'm not sure whether recording would
you
count.
you just convinced me that Nina's right.
Yeah,
Because I think
no.
that this should be done in a public hearing, in a public meeting, in a public
Yes.
fashion.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So-
it goes to the planning board.
So he's got to attest to.
The
to
board.
planning,
during
to
a
the-
meeting. So he has to attest during a meeting.
I think that
Yes.
was the implication
Okay.
here.
Well, I think it needs to be specified then. He has to attest during a meeting.
No, because the only way he could attest is during a meeting. He
Well-
can't call up each individual members, because then you'd be having a planning board meeting that wasn't public.
Right, I mean, if two of you are already at a restaurant, I have to get up and leave.
It'll be assumed. Yeah, I don't think,
I just think you want to say you may request to vote to the planning board. Okay?
May request
Wherever we
to the
were,
board
request to the planning board to vote.
to vote. Okay, all right, okay. All right.
And you don't need it during a public meeting, because they're going to be in a public meeting if they're going before the planning board.
Right.
So here, I'll make that point here, we've got planning board, both of them capital, and before I use just board.
Doesn't matter.
Shouldn't we be consistent?
yes, we should be.
Yes, you
I
should be
agree.
consistent.
It does matter.
Okay?
So if we're gonna call it the board or the planning board?
We
let's
may
be
not be smart, but we can be consistent.
Yeah,
Consistently, whatever we are. There you go.
Okay.
all right.
Is everyone fine with that?
I don't like the purple.
I like purple.
No one asked.
Uh, uh,
All right, we'll lose the purple then.
As soon as he says accept, it's all going away anyway, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, how's
know.
George going to object?
Right, that's right.
There's so many suggestions added on that it,
You've got a layering effect.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this
Welcome to
document,
Congress.
this document can
Or
be,
sausage making.
Yes.
can be compared with the existing baseline document, and you can see what the proposed changes are.
Oh, I want to go back to that. I've done enough work
I
on
think
this
there's a
document.
G where you need a Q, or Q-U-E-S-T, not re-guest, but request.
I think it's just kind of hidden here. Let's.
There you go,
I-
perfect.
Okay,
Yep, it's just kind of hidden by the lines.
there you go.
Okay, conflict of interest.
What was this question?
So this is actually my comment. Close proximity is just a little vague. I
Yeah,
think
very.
specifying how close that proximity is would maybe
Agree.
be helpful for actually following this particular regulation.
I would say abutting.
Yeah, abutting. How about, okay, that's it, you've already got land abutting.
I mean, yeah, that's up to you.
Well, we
We cover the abutting.
We say abutters
Yeah.
are within 200 feet
Yeah,
in the land use ordinance.
Yeah.
So I think in land abutting ought to be,
So if one of us comes up in the abutting list, we should recuse ourselves.
yeah,
All right, we have
Oh,
done that
yeah.
in the past.
oh, yeah, yeah.
I
That's
thought
good.
we had somewhere in our rules and regulations or in the land use, or in the MMA, that you could say you had a conflict of interest, you were in a butter. Like, I've come before the board when the golf club has brought an application. And
Even a
I've
CC, huh?
Yeah,
Members are encouraged to withdraw, or even if no formal.
conflict of interest. Yeah, encouraged, but I
Let me
mean,
find
I've
that
come up
section.
with an application with the golf course, and I'm in a butter, and I've had no issue with them, but I've told the board about it, and the board has been okay with me sitting on it.
Let me find that.
Here, it's not giving you that option.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and I think if you're in a butter, you shouldn't, because there could be the appearance of, I mean, that's not close proximity of.
Consistency is really our goal here.
Well, it's one of our goals. for
It's
sure.
also one of those situations where if you aren't opposed to it, you don't appeal it to be in conflict, but if you were opposed it, people could then say it's because you're the abutter.
Yeah.
So there's a statutory test in conflicts of interest, and that's if you are an officer, director, partner, associate, employee, stockholder of a private corporation, business, or other economic entity, which is making an application to the board, which will affect the board's decision, and is directly or indirectly the owner of at least 10% stock of a private corporation, or owns at least 10% interest in a business, another economic entity. If the board falls into one of the relationships listed in category 1, but not have a 10% covered in category 2, then the board member does not have a financial conflict of interest. There's case law tests. So the board member whose conflict of interest is not governed by Title 30A, because the board member does not fall within the categories discussed in the preceding paragraph, there is common law, case law standard defining activity which may constitute a conflict of interest. That standard is whether the town official, by reason of his interest, is placed in a situation of temptation to serve his own personal interest to the prejudice of the interest of those for whom the law authorized required him to act.
See, we've had situations, and it has led to a court case right up through the Maine Supreme Court, where the board and several of the board members were also members of the Conservation Trust. And the Conservation Trust came before the board, and they did not recuse themselves.
That's pretty direct.
Yeah, that's,
And they showed a lot of prejudice during all of this. It was
should no
a
longer
very
be board
conflicting application. And it cost the neighborhood, which was fighting it, tens of thousands of dollars, almost $100,000 to have lawyers contest it, then take it all the way up through the Maine Supreme Court.
I don't
And
think
it was
anyone's arguing
overturned.
that we shouldn't have a conflict of interest statement in here.
Yeah.
All we're saying is the word's okay.
But you're saying financial interest in the matter, and I'm talking about a 501c3 corporation. They wouldn't have a financial interest, but if they were on the board of that
Yep.
nonprofit organization, that's an interest.
And I've had planning board members who did that, and they disclosed it, and they recused themselves from voting on that matter because they were on the board or they were on the fundraising campaign
So
for
you
that
think there should be
project.
an item 3 on here?
Yes,
That's
I
what I'm
do.
hearing, okay.
I
So
do.
I think that financial interest sort of plays that.
Financial interest
Yeah.
or
So I
just
want
an
to,
interest
I
would
want to
be-
put the notion of a motion before you all is that it's 9 o'clock, and we're not close to done, right?
It's
We made
after
some good progress. Could someone take an action to propose an item 3 under conflict of interest that captures this concern succinctly about being closely affiliated with an organization that has come before the board for consideration?
Well, you said it right there, closely affiliated with an organization.
For example, on their board or whatever, but if someone would take that action, I think I would then move to adjourn for this evening.
It's not even you have a conflict, it's the appearance of a conflict.
Well,
is always
right.
what I
Ethically, it's an appearance.
So there's a subsection in here, I'll add it for you all, at your next, you can just look at it then. There's an appearance of impropriety, which I think that would cover it.
Yes, it
So
Yes.
I'll put that language in there for you, and you guys can look at it, and
Okay.
we can cover that next meeting.
And then, whatever we get to today, this is the updated ones on the SharePoint, right?
She's updating it as
That
it's,
is anything in
It's,
place.
it's live.
Yeah, live. So
The
I-
old
I
one
mean,
isn't
I
there
haven't-
anymore.
I know, when I did it, I wasn't sure I'd seen everybody else's comments.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
There's only
Now
one
I-
copy.
Now I can,
yep.
Oh,
yeah. So I did it,
I think,
Early
I
on,
think
and
your exercise, that first time you spent with Nadia was part of the effort to get it all
yeah,
flat, and so that we're all editing the same document.
yeah. And I edited something else.
That took like 2 minutes.
Or I went to save it and it couldn't be saved or whatever.
So
I went
for
up a couple of times, too.
a very, very brief new business matter, we, in our office now, we've had some issues with tree removal without permitting, so if you want to take one of these, David, and pass them down. We have a brochure now that we're going to be passing out to everybody who picks up a permit. So they'll get this brochure that has some information about, very overarching information about our rules regarding tree removal or basically any kind of land alteration within protected zones. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of a decrease in unpermitted removal of trees and shrubbery.
But this is just in like the shoreline zone.
Yes,
So-
and
so-
it has
so
some
the title
information
of the
about tagged
document-
trees as well.
The
town.
title of the document is just in Kennebunkport, but then as soon as I open it up, it says it's just within the shoreland zone.
So there's a couple of different bullet points in there.
Okay.
So there's some information about shoreland, resource protection, and tagged trees, which are our most frequent flyers in terms of.
And this is one of the reasons you need to get together with the Shade Tree Committee. One of the big sticking points with the Shade Tree Committee, which has led to in the past, the people leaving the Shade Tree Committee, refusing to chair it anymore, is that there are no real punishments for taking down a tagged tree. And for illegally removing something, there are no big fines, and for people who have a lot of money, there's no other way of hitting them except to perhaps do things like say that your permit for building now will be delayed for a year. And I think that would get to them, something like that. But the Board of Selectmen has to decide what kind of penalties there are gonna be for this. Because in the past, they haven't had penalties that were worth anything, and people felt that they could go ahead and do whatever they wanted.
Well, I'm confused here a little bit. I thought this was a proposed document for review. Is that correct?
No, it's just an FYI.
Yeah,
That's all.
we've printed them out and we'll hand them out with people.
Well, has this been coordinated with the Shade Tree Committee at all?
No.
No.
Well,
No,
that
this is
might
more
be a
for-
good idea, though.
This is more for, again, for code staff, we recognize that there are people who don't understand the rules and regulations. Or they plead they don't know about the rules and regulations.
Okay.
So we're handing out this with their building permit, so they can't plead ignorance.
This is by no means meant to be an exhaustive document of all of the rules.
And that, but the minute I bring this to the Shade Tree Committee, they're gonna say, yeah, but there are no penalties. Nothing that really hits people hard.
Do you think that'll be their only?
No,
Concern?
Steve Hanna will go on forever.
Well,
And he
no,
will reiterate
I was
all
thinking
the
of a
trees that were
constructed,
taken down in
no, I was thinking, is there any constructive
We have been working on a tree
feedback here?
ordinance. So that's why I say it might be a good idea to get together with the Shade Tree Committee.
Might this be the vehicle?
The scope of what this document is. This document
Yeah.
is to help people with a permit. Solving the longer-term problem is a bigger town one. This is trying to inform people now.
Yep.
Nina, are
The
you,
rules,
are
don't
you-
do this, do this.
are you thinking, I know you're, I don't know if you're a presiding member of the Shade Tree Committee, but you're certainly a long-standing committee member and an influential one, are you asking the code enforcement office to work more closely with you? And might a review of this document be a vehicle for doing that?
Yes, basically, yes.
Nudge, nudge.
Nudge, nudge. Kick.
I mean, and then Nina could, as an emissary, go to the Shade Tree Committee and say, hey, these guys have already done all this work here.
Let's get them to work on the tree ordinance with us.
They're interested in any feedback you might have, or maybe setting it up so that code enforcement office could review any proposed changes in the future.
I think we need to adjourn.
Yes, I think so.
I made that motion, but it's been sitting.
You made that motion?
No
I'll
one
second
seconded.
it.
But then you-
I'll second it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thanks, guys.
Again. So are we adjourned now?
I knew I was at that.
Okay, good.